What's going on, everybody? My name is Dom of XComicRelease.com, associate editor, and today, yes, you read that title right, we are going to be tier ranking every single omnibus that was on the DC Tiger Eyes poll in the 2026 near mint condition video. I can't believe I'm doing this, but this is going to be the topic and subject of mind. And before I get into that, I do want to go over a couple of things so that you guys aren't as completely lost as me. I know that some folks might be typically ranking on based on their wants. They see a book and, oh, that doesn't exist in an omnibus, or that only existed in a compendium I really wanted in an omnibus. Or for some others, it might be, we have never seen this type of material recollected, or it needs to be remastered. Now, I have broken this up into three separate categories. A large amount of the weight is the selfish portion. How much do I actually want this book? It's not really a very big, there's no explanation on this. If I want the book, it's going to rank higher. And all of these on my spreadsheet were a list from 1 to 10. So again, if the book had a 1, that means I probably didn't want it. And if the book had a 10, the book definitely means that I wanted it. Now, this part of the score is separated into three formal tasks. What's the historical importance of the book? Is this a gap filler? And does this book, or at least the mapping that we are given, make sense to place in an omnibus? And a little tiny factor of the score that might have bumped some books up a tier or not, and I guarantee you that it is tiny. How likely is this book to be published? Some are probably on the horizon more than others. I actually had to take my bias out of this. Use deductive reasoning to say, this is why DC might publish this book closer than you think. And again, I will go over some of those factors as soon as we get into the tier list. Now, if you haven't watched my videos over with Kody, I would definitely suggest doing so, both on my channel and his. We had a lot of fun giving people an idea of what ended up in our top 10 for our votes, but actually didn't get into a numbering because we wanted to keep you all for that yourselves. And again, I'll get into that when I get onto the tier list. I told Kody that there were about 80 books that I wanted in a DC omnibus. It was really hard to just pin down what I specifically wanted. So this is where I reached out to my optimization and simulation professor and asked, could you help me formulate some formulas in Microsoft Excel so that this video could be possible? We went over, at least through an email chain, who was very receptive and open. I was also kind of happy that I asked him about stuff that wasn't related to class material. A lot of the class material, not to get too much into it, was based on making sure that operations in my Excel formulas were as efficient as possible. And I believe that through the methodology and the score that I and he created, it would at least make sense to see, oh, that's why this ended up being in S tier versus a C tier. And right before we get into the crux of the video, I do want to give a big shout out to my friend Crushing Crisis, Peter, for making this all possible. I'm using his mappings based on what we had set up in the near mint condition / Tiger Eyes poll for the 2026 DC omnibuses. And if you have not had a chance to check his site out, I use it on a weekly basis to make sure that I have all of my things set. And he's also one of my dearest friends, so if you could help show him some support by checking out crushingcrisis.com, I would for certain appreciate it. Now, before I also get into this video, I have no idea how long this is going to go. So if you have not had the chance to help me on whatever my videos are or this specific channel, do hit the like button and also subscribe if you're brand new. It helps me out, it helps everybody out, and I would like to again thank you guys for watching. And let's go ahead and get into the DC Omnibus 2026 edition tier list. And we're going to kick it off with the score. So as you can see, I have 6 separate scores for this particular tier list, or 6 different tiers. The first one is the S plus tier. This is the dream tier. These are books that I have wanted for a long time, and also books that have definitely popped into top 10 considerations. So if you're looking at this list and you see something in the S plus tier, there's a pretty good shot that I voted for it in my final 10 for the DC poll. The S tier is need. These are books that I did not feel as maybe as passionately or strongly about, say, the S plus tier, but these are books where I am talking to myself and saying, well, they're not my favorites, but they're amongst my favorites, and I don't know why this exists, or this doesn't exist, I should say. The print soon tier is going to be the A tier, and this tier is pretty much I don't feel it as strongly as an S or S plus tier. So S plus tier is your top 10. This is definitely going to be in my top 10 or top 15. S is this needs to be out as soon as possible. A is a tier below that where I'm saying this is a very big major book. Sometimes the wantability or I need it out right now, or I need it on my bookshelf, hurts it a bit in, again, the first part of the score where, I don't maybe necessarily want this, but I acknowledge that there is, it needs to be here soon. This is an actual missing book that DC needs to print out. The B is the interesting category. I call this it makes sense for DC to publish this book. There's a lot of historical context to it, or even makes sense to place out in an omnibus. It's just something that maybe I'm not as passionate about as the upper three tiers. These some merit are typically books that are reserved for, I understand why people want this, it's just that I don't personally want it. And then the D tier is, I neither decide, and the D tier is pretty simple. I don't want it, and I don't think it should be an omnibus. And I hope that all is explained decently enough so that you guys can understand the categories to which I decided to attack to. And the first book that we're going to attack on this list is the Action Comics Weekly Omnibus from 1988 to 1989, featuring characters like Green Lantern, Black Canary, Phantom Lady. There are a lot of different characters, 5-6 stories typically for this particular era of Action Comics that featured, like I said, a whole host of characters. I'm going to put this in the C tier. We've seen this already reprinted in, at least portions of it anyways, in the DC Finest Green Arrow Trial of Oliver Queen collected edition. I would rather prefer reading the characters individually than having them all up in a volume. It's not that I don't think there's any merit to it. I just would like to see this particular book collect individualized, or an omnibus with individualized characters, rather than, I'm reading through issue number 611 of Action Comics and I'm continuing on with the list. The next book are focused on the stories outside of the Superman portions of Action Comics. So you're looking at somebody like Zatara. I'm going to put this in D tier. I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason that I care particularly about Action Comics is because I like Superman. And I had a blast reading the Golden Age stories, but maybe not in the entertainment way, more so a historical context type of way where I'm appreciating the Schuster and Siegel of it all. I just don't think I care enough about any of those other characters to give this one any time of day. We also have the Adam Strange Modern Omnibus, so this would go on from Bronze Age to Flashpoint. And this one, I'm going to also put this in C tier. It's not that, again, I don't care particularly about the character. It's just that we have already had this in a deluxe edition format. And if I want to read Adam Strange stories, I'll pick up the JLA by Mark Waid Omnibus. I just don't know if Adam Strange is a character that I can attest to and say, man, this is really interesting. I love the Planet Ran. I'm not the type of person at all. I think, again, there are some merits to seeing him interact with other heroes. I just don't think he's too interesting enough of a character, at least for me, to want this all in full. We also have the Anthology Stories Omnibus placed on here, which are not collected in the Superman omnibuses, say perhaps. This is going to be in D tier, and the same reason that I placed the Zatara and other pulp hero stories in the D tier. I just do not care enough for any of the other characters for me to want an omnibus of it. And the same also goes for Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis. again, before my time, and maybe somebody out there can explain to me why these two are, I guess, more important in the midst of it all. But at the same time, I also recognize that I literally do not have any wishes to have those on my bookshelf. Oh man, first one, finally. All-Star Squadron by Roy Thomas. This is going to go into S tier. I am surprised that with the score, it wasn't in the S plus tier. I love the JSA, and from what I've read of the All-Star Squadron, I actually got recommended this to me by a Reddit user 7 years ago who told me that there were books outside of the 1999 JSA run I should check out. And while it was wordy for me, this is something that DC should not only look to publish, but it's also got a lot of merit and weight to it too. If you're looking for the World War II superheroes, this is a book that you will need to pick up. Ambush Bug. I'm going to put this in B tier. It's interestingly enough to see, oh, we got a couple of, again, strong creators on this particular title. The only reason that it's not higher is that I'm not the biggest Ambush Bug fan, but I am willing to check it out because of the creators attached to the book. Amethyst. Princess of Gemworld, and this is content prior to, or maybe could extend to, New 52. I'm going to put this in C tier. I really liked the Amy Reeder Amethyst Wonder Comics run that came out of the Bendis Wonder Comics line in 2020. It was a 6-issue run, and I've also read plenty of her material. I mean, even most recently with the Titans by John Layman run. But this is also something where I acknowledge the character, and while she has her strengths, it's not something that I'm immediately interested in going out to see and look for. It's, again, just not my thing. Angel and Ape, I'm going to put this in D tier. I wish that I cared more enough about the comic, but it's also something where I acknowledge I legitimately have no interest in this particular title. Animal Man, The Vertigo Years by Donalano and Prosser, which would follow the most recent Animal Man omnibus that we had, which comes right after Grant Morrison, and of course, the Jamie Delano Omni. This is going to go into C tier. I can see DC doing this quite soon, considering that we just had an Animal Man, and it's really cool to see them not only upgrade from the compendium format over to omnibus format. I think that they definitely will print this off at some point. Is it something that I'm going to immediately want on my bookshelf? I don't know about that. I'm still on the fence about getting more Animal Man that isn't Grant Morrison. So for that reason, that's why it is in the C tier. United States, Canada, Mexico, Japan, I don't know what to Peru, and Animaniacs is going in D, and this is gonna be over soon. Alright, next on the list we have the Aquaman by Larson and Jurgens omnibus, which follows directly after Peter David. I'm not really a big fan of Eric Larson, although I am actually quite a big, decent fan of Dan Jurgens. This is going to go into C tier. It's not anything against these two creators, more so Larson than Jurgens. I just really do not see the merits, particularly for this omnibus, other than the fact that Jurgens worked on it. Again, it's nothing against them. I just do not care, I think, for Eric Larson. Next, we have the Aquaman, the Bronze Age omnibus, which would collect everything by Michelini, Aparo, etc. This is going to go into C tier as well. I feel like, at least for the pre-crisis Aquaman, I have mostly everything that I need. If you want to see some decently good pre-crisis Aquaman, I actually would suggest getting the Aquaman King of Atlantis DC Finest that collects all of his Silver Age stories. There's some merit in that, especially with the art from Ramona Freighton. I actually quite like her art in that, but Bronze Age, I don't think it's going to be a yes for me. Aquaman, the Golden Age omnibus. This is Waterman. This is Waterman Aquaman. This is going to go into C tier as well. And the only reason that I'm at least halfly interested in this is because this character pops up in Jeff Johns' The New Golden Age 2020 and post Justice Society of America era. And because Casualty Comics did a really fantastic video on Golden Age Aquaman. So those are really the only two reasons to why I'm even remotely interested in that era of Aquaman. And this is going to go into C tier, which is the Silver Age Aquaman Omnibus. Nothing against the Silver Age. I already have this in DC Finest, and that actually killed most of the score in terms of what I wanted to see. So if it was in a particular format prior to this, or will be in a different format in the future, there's probably going to be at least some hit on the book. So just a heads up on the front for you guys who are watching the video. Next on the list, we have the Aquaman New 52 Omnibus by Jeff Parker, Cullen Bunn, and Dan Jurgens. This is going to go into S tier. This is actually one omnibus that I've been asking DC for such a long time, and I had no idea if they were going to go with the deluxe edition after Jeff Johns' New 52 Aquaman. For Jeff Parker, there are actually bits of Jeff Parker's run that I like more than the Aquaman by Jeff Johns and Ivan Reyes part. So this is going to go easily into S tier. I'm not a big fan of the Cullen Bunn portions, but that Jeff Parker portion is more than enough for me to want this gap filler, and that gap filler is exactly why this is going to go into S tier. You got the New Wave and the Sword of Atlantis. This is going to go into B tier, and the only reason that this is going to go into B tier is because Patrick Gleason had some of his earliest work over at DC here. Patrick Gleason, for many of you who might not know, or some of you who might not know, he is my favorite artist in the industry and has been for most of my life. So that is going to go into B tier. That's the only reason that this is there. I really want to see that early Patrick Gleason and in on my bookshelf. Next, we have the Aquaman Post-Crisis Omnibus. This is going to go into the C tier. I already have Peter David Omnibus, and I feel like that's more than enough for me to at least justify any single other portion of this. Again, this is all prior to Peter David. I am more than comfortable with placing this in C, and it's the same reasons to why I put Golden Age and Silver Age and also the Bronze Age there. And now we have the two Rebirth omnibuses. Both of these are creator-owned, creator-centric omnibuses. First of which is Dan Abnett's Aquaman, and this is going to go into the A tier. I don't know if I necessarily feel maybe strongly about this book as Parker, because I do like Parker, I think, the most out of the four that we've had. If we're following the guidebook from Jeff Johns after Brightest Day, and to Parker, and to Abnett, and then obviously to Kelly Sue DeConnick, who I'll get to, this is going to go into A tier just primarily because I want to see the Parker part first. I want to see Bunn in Oversize first, but if that omnibus existed, and if that omnibus ever gets reprinted by DC and it's before next year's Omni poll, expect this to go higher. The same also goes for Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman run. I did not care for the first arc because I'm typically not... It depends on how you do it, but I'm not the biggest fan of amnesiac type stories. But it was a great introduction for the character for anybody who hadn't been into Aquaman before. And I think Kelly Sue DeConnick did a wonderful job in being able to navigate around the murky waters of the Year of the Villain event in 2019. So I'm going to put that in A, and again, that'll be an S tier, assuming that we can get the Parker, Bunn, and Jurgens omnibus before that all happens. We also have the Aquaman omnibus, and this is the portions written by Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas, which would include Black Manta, The Becoming. This is going to go in the C tier. I like some of the elements, but this was also something that I was reading while I was working at my comic shop, and it just didn't hook me enough to say I need this in an omnibus, please. But I do appreciate that we are bringing more to light with some of the other characters like Aqualad, and I really think that at some point we should get that all prioritized. And I also realize that this particular mapping will not include the current Jeremy Adams run, but in 1 or 2 years, expect that to be in at least B tier or higher. Next, we have Arak, Son of Thunder by Roy and Dan Thomas. I love Roy. I do not care for Eric, and maybe that will change someday, but that's where it's going to be for now. Arian, the Lord of Atlantis, which will also include Arian the Immortal, is also going to go into D tier. I unfortunately do not care enough about this book to prioritize it high on my list. We also have the Arrowverse Omnibus. I've already watched the Arrowverse TV shows. This is going to go into D tier. I just do not care, I think, enough for that particular universe to keep me interested or invested into their comics as well. Atari Force, 1980s comic. This is also going to go into D tier. Again, low priorities, and there's just nothing about the team, at least from what I've heard, that fascinates me in any sort of way. Next, we're going to go into the Atom. We have a couple of Atom mapping omnibuses here. The first of which is the Bronze Age. So this is the Atom Bronze Age omnibus from 68 to 84. This is going to go into C tier. And I'll explain why in just a bit, because we have the Silver Age Omnibus, and this is going to go into the B tier. The reason why I put Silver Age over Bronze Age is because I want to see the Silver Age first, or DC tackling the Silver Age in omnibus format, getting that all remastered before we get into the Bronze Age. You actually see that a lot of the books that we'll talk about later are also like this as well. Nothing against Ray Palmer in the Bronze Age. I just think we need the Silver Age before we get to the Bronze Age. This is also a particular line where I can see DC going the DC Finest route first before we get into an omnibus. Next, we have the All New Adam by Gail Simone. This is going to go into A. I actually really like Ryan Choi. There was a really, really fun Wonder Woman guest star crossover single issue that I also happen to enjoy a lot. And I also like Ryan Choi more of a character instead of Ray Palmer. But that is, again, just a personal preference. Power of the Atom. This is also where I'm going to diverge a little bit from my methodology on pre-crisis books. Again, this probably might not make too much sense to some of you folks, but I'm going to put this in A tier right next to the Power to the Atom next to All New Adam. And I think it's just because I really like Roger Stern. I also happen to like Tom Payer quite a decent bit too. And Roger Stern was killing into the 80s, and this is something that I definitely want to react. Again, just sort of a precursor. And this is also partly me admitting I've never read that part, like Atom material at all, but I really like Roger Stern and Superman. I feel like if I read or get a chance to read some of the Power of the Atom, this is definitely something that I would enjoy myself. Next, we got a couple of Azrael books, the first book of which is... Next, we got Azrael. We got two Azrael books here. First of which is the Fabian Nicieza and David Hein era of Azrael. That is immediately going to go into D tier because I do not care about Azrael as a particular character. Up until Tynan wrote him, I just never found him compelling. And I also will admit this is going to be the Dennis O'Neil Agent of the Batman run. This is going to go into C tier. Again, it's nothing against Dennis O'Neil. The most compelling that I have read of Azrael is Under the Watch of James Tynion during his time on DC at Detective Comics, anyways, I should say, the Detective Comics Rebirth era. That is the most interesting that I have found of Azrael, and that's already collected in the omnibus format, so I do not feel like I need any or either of those on my shelf. The same goes for Batlash. I do not care. This is going to go on the low priority list for me. Going to go in D tier. Next, we have the Barbara Gordon Oracle, the omnibus. You're probably asking, well, why did you use a Suicide Squad cover for Barbara Gordon? Well, that is where she made her first appearance as Oracle, the person behind the computer. If you're watching this, James, you are essentially the Oracle of our universe. I'm going to put this in C because I find that character omnis, especially if you're splitting something up when they're not focused on a particular character, especially again for a character who unfortunately got handicapped by Alan Moore and the effects from the Killing Joke, took John Ostrander a good bit to prop her character back up into the character that we all know and are familiar with. I know that got reversed into her being Batgirl post Flashpoint, and some people still have a differentiating amount of opinions on the usage of her character, but I do think that most people are familiar with her as Oracle, and some of my favorite bits, and we'll get to this much later in the tier list video because I have some more stuff to say. I do think that it is going to be important to carry an omnibus like that to see the progression, but again, I look at it and say I would rather have a Birds of Prey omnibus than an omnibus featuring Barbara Gordon in this particular onset. Now, that being said, a strong upside candidate for me, and this is going to go in the B tier, this is the Batgirl Rebirth Omnibus by Hope Larson, Cecil Castellucci, most importantly, Margaret Scott. Margaret Scott has some killer arcs in this particular book. Margaret Scott, for many of you who might not know, she worked on some of the DC animated universe scripts, the new ones anyways, post Flashpoint 2013, but she also had, I think anyways, a really cool point of view, somebody who was handicapped herself. And I think having that viewpoint really gave her this chance to sort of give us a Babs that was different from the one presented in the Burnside era, a little bit after Burnside with Hope Larson, and also offered, I think, something very interesting with the character that Cecil Castellucci, I don't think, in my opinion, anyways, brought to the table. So that's going to go in B. Now, you probably, if you have watched, again, the Kody videos, you know exactly where these next two books are going. These two books, the Batgirl by Cassandra Cain and Batgirl Stephanie Brown, are going to go into the Dream books. These are books that I have wanted in oversized for the longest time. The 1999-2000 run, especially, of Cassandra Cain. Some of the most brilliant stuff that you'll ever read. Some of the most compelling comics and stories that you will ever read too. The same also goes for Stephanie Brown. I found her journey into being the next sort of like key milestone point in a time where Bruce Wayne was not in Gotham. These are two runs that everybody should read at some point, and this is just in my personal opinion as to why I don't think Barbara Gordon is the best Batgirl. These two held down the fort just tremendously in those costumes. And if you have not had a chance to read them, I would suggest doing so. Cassandra Cain up until 1 year later, and then Stephanie Brown Batgirl. The run is great. You're going to get some great older little sibling moments between her and Damian Wayne, a crossover with Tim Drake, and a lot of hooligans amongst the Bat family as Stephanie tries to carry on that legacy. We also have the Batgirls by the Clunan and Conrad. Mapping of the Omni, and this is going to go into D tier, and it's nothing against them. I read this in singles, and it's also something that I don't think I really wished I'd read again. It's got fantastic art by Jorge Corona, but I think this was also at a time in DC where a lot of the different functions of the Bat family, there were just a lot of ups and downs in terms of what the Bat Office was doing up at this point. So for the 2 years that they were on, I wish those were higher, but it's going to go in D. Now we have a murderer's row of Batman supervillains, and these... I hate to say it, these are all going to go into the D tier for me, as much as I hate to say it, and it's nothing against any of the villains here. I find all of their stories, for the most part, except for Mr. Freeze, I find all of these villains great when they're up against Batman or another Bat family Gotham superhero. I do not care for them in the slightest of splitting them up arc by character rather than giving us read Batman Golden Age Omnibus Volume 4, read Batman Silver Age Omnibus Volume 2, which is coming out later this year, or the much later DC Finest Batman Curse of Crime Alley. I really want to read those characters through that lens. And that is, I think, how I'm going to easily place this in. We also have a couple of Batman Superman World's Finest and team-ups for the next 4 or 5 books that I see here. First one of which is the Trinity by Kurt Busiek. It's going to go into C. I actually quite like this run, but it's not too high priority of something for me right now. This is the weekly series, or anyways, I should say. This is actually... Next on the list are a whole bunch of team-ups between the Trinity and also Batman, Superman. There are also some Superman, Batman books, but we'll get to those when we get to the S's. These are just the B's. We're starting off with the B's first. And I probably should have clarified earlier in the video that I'm going off of an alphabetical order, not necessarily an alphanumerical order where we go golden, silver, bronze. Whatever Microsoft Excel told me that this was the order that you were going to do it in, I am unfortunately beholden to that. And we're going to kick this off with the post-crisis portions of the Trinity from 1990 and onwards. This is going to go into C tier. This is something that I don't mind. I wouldn't mind having this printed out, and we've seen DC do these in Silver Age omnibuses. I just don't know if I'd care for a post-crisis one right now, just with everything else that the company is publishing at this moment. We also have the Kurt Busiek run. This is the weekly series. I actually quite like the series. The reason why I'm placing this into C tier is less so that I don't want it. It's also something that I realize I don't know if I exactly love the concept of having a Trinity book just overall. I think having these characters in the Justice League would make more and better sense, or just having to, like, a Superman Wonder Woman book, sign me up for it. A Wonder Woman Batman book, sign me up for it. The Trinity should be a part of a larger thing rather than seeing those 3 characters interact by themselves. In that same way, I also really like this run. I'm going to put the mana pool Trinity run in C tier. No shade against Manipool. I just think that you can get more out of something else if you're looking at the rebirth of it all and everyone else. Although this will include the Liam Sharp series that, again, I quite enjoyed. I just don't know if the formal fit, the mapping makes sense for that particular book. And I also think that, I don't know, we could get a deluxe of it and I think we'd be okay. So on those ends, it's going to end up in the C tier for me. Now we have the New 52 Greg Pak J. Lee book that the first 4 issues anyways, because chronologically it makes sense. This was in the start of the Earth 2 omnibus. This is also going to go into the C tier. Again, no shade against any of these creators. I just want to see maybe, I don't know, maybe something else. But I know that this was probably going to end up higher on a lot of other people's lists. It's just not something that I necessarily want at this moment. Something that is going to end up on the B tier is going to be the Batman Superman post-Batman Who Laughs run from Joshua Williamson and Gene Lin Yang. Not for the Joshua Williamson bits, but the Ivan Reyes illustrated portions of the movie, the movie film parts of the Batman Super. I found that really, really intriguing. Got a chance to review it a couple of years ago, so that one holds a little bit more of a special place in my heart than some of these other team-up books. Now we have 2 Batman and Robin books, the first of which is Joshua Williamson's run with Simone DeMeo as part of the Dawn of DC era of comics. This is going to go in the B tier for me. I credit Joshua Williamson for fixing Damian Wayne. We had Damian Wayne, unfortunately, in a really bad spot because of the Adam Glass and later Robbie Thompson Teen Titans runs. Joshua Williamson picked up the pieces for Damian, and I don't think that we'd be seeing him in a larger over capacity had it not been for Joshua Williamson. And just for that, I think it should get an omnibus by that own merit. And something that I kind of find sad about, I'm also going to put the Philip Kennedy Johnson and Javi Rodriguez run in the B tier as well. I feel like the Javi Rodriguez and PKJ run also speak to the same sort of, I really wish that they were here longer, because I think we've had so many cooler stories had PKJ decided to not jump the gun over to Marvel. Now, Batman Superman World's Finest. I'm going to put this in A tier. I'm going to explain why. The first omnibus we're going to see a lot of Dan Mora art. It's going to be fantastic just to see like an overall laid out and how important it was, honestly, for Mark Waid to come back to DC after heading over to Marvel, Archie, and a couple of other comic book companies, obviously with Humanoids. It just felt weird not seeing him at DC. And Mark Waid is honestly one of the only creators in comics, I think you could put Roy Thomas in there as well, where you can see, oh, these are 2 creators that actually know the ins and outs of how both of these universes operate. The reason why this isn't higher is only because I think that there are more Mark Waid stories in omnibus format that deserve a higher format, and it's also something where I am actually content with keeping the run in singles because that Silver Age flair kind of keeps me engaged in that way. But I also acknowledge the fact that it's going to be getting deluxes in a nice deluxe line. So DC will probably know, yes, they're gonna print an omnibus out of this eventually because, well, they have to. It's 2 of the biggest creators over at the company doing this particular ongoing. I just don't know if, at least I think from what I understand, I just don't know if I need it on my bookshelf ASAP. At least the omnibus. Continue to give it out in singles. Really like all the work that Adrian Gutierrez is doing. We even have a brand new artist as far as the current issue, but very, very excited to get that in omnibus. I just don't think that it's, at least for me, it's going to be any higher than an A. But I know it'll be here. The next book that we have are the World's Finest Bronze Age. So we are continuing the World's Finest team-up themes. Bronze Age and the Silver Age are going to go in C for me. And I don't know if I would move them any higher because I prefer this over these 2. And that leads us to the Batman Beyond of it all. The first book we have here is Adam Beechin and Kyle Higgins's Batman Beyond. So we have 2.0 universe. This would follow directly after the Beyond Compendium that we most recently had as far as this is concerned. I'm going to put this in C tier. As much as I say, okay, I know that some people will probably want this out of an omnibus. I honestly would prefer, and I'll get to the classics later in a minute. There's a story in here that I'm still second to. And I don't know if this is Kyle Higgins' fault, but the only thing that I remember from this run is Barbara telling Bruce that she's pregnant. He says that he's going to congratulate Dick Grayson. And she goes, "We haven't banged." That's the only thing I remember from this book. That's why it's going to end up in C tier. I also enjoyed this run a bit. This is the Dan Jurgens run. This is also going to be in the C tier for me. There's some merit. It also was to, I think, a lot of people's surprises, including mine. This was the longest Rebirth run that ran from 2016 and onwards. So congratulations to Dan Jurgens for staying on that long. I just don't know if I'm compelled enough to snag this in any format. Now, one book that should be in Omnibus already, printed soon. It's not going to end up in need, but we need to see this in Omnibus format as the classics. And the only reason that it wasn't higher is because we already have a compendium of it. And I know that some people were partly angered, but it's all, again, when I come down to the formula of it all, what I ended up going was, this has already been printed out. You can get the compendium. It's cheap and it makes sense. Next on the list is the Batman by Chip Zdarsky Omnibus Volume 2. Got Omnibus Volume 1. I'm going to put this in B tier. The second half is definitely not as strong as the first half. In this, you are going to have a lot of Gotham War or the Gotham War entire crossover and the absolute power tie-ins. It's just not as compelling, but it's also something where I recognize that the gap filler between this and whenever Fractions Batman Omnibus will come out, it's going to be a decently sized gap. So I'm going to place it there. Next one on the list is Batman by Ed Brubaker. It's going to end up in C tier. I'm not really a big fan of the early 2000s Batman run with him, Scott McDaniel. This also is going to extend into when Brian K. Vaughan got on the run. Not my favorites as far as all of these are concerned. So I'm going to have to comfortably place that in the C tier. D tier. For this hurts. I don't know how we haven't gotten an omnibus of this, actually. And I remember talking with Peter about this on the panel that we did. And this is the Scott Snyder Companion. The reason this is going to go into D tier are twofold. One, you can get some of these books. These have already been printed out in different formats. We actually had the All-Star Batman in a deluxe edition, which is happily sitting on my shelf upstairs from my office. And we also have had Gates of Gotham collected in that same aspect as well. This also is just a mismatch of a lot of Scott Snyder, and I honestly think that it would be better for everybody to get these individually than as a standalone companion omni, so that's going to stay in D for me. Batman by Tom King, Omnibus Volume 3. In the same reason to why I placed this next to Gotham War, or put Gotham War in B, I'm also going to put Batman by Tom King in the B tier as well. Next on the list, we have the Batman Chronicles, 1995-2001. I feel weird for saying this. Well, maybe not so weird. Same as B tier. I don't know if I am quite as hooked, say, onto this as some other Batman books that I will be getting into, but this is going to go into B tier for me on that front. Batman Confidential. I remember talking to Kody about this, and he told me about the story of how these were some of his first Batman. This is going to be a nightmare for DC to map out in the finest format, and if I'm going to be going by that instance, I'm going to keep this in C tier. It's not a priority to not have it in Omnibus, but I also recognize that there are other omnibuses for Batman that I will prefer over this. Now, you might be asking, why is Batgirl on here? Well, some of the images that I use, unfortunately, had to only take one particular cover. I just decided to use the cover to issue number 1 of Batgirl by Marcos Martin. Actually, one of my favorite covers in general. This is going to go. I actually put this in the D tier. The reason why I place this in the D tier, you can easily get it in trade paperback. And it's also something where it's not something like the Loeb and Sale Omnis where I do understand the merit and the reasoning to why that exists. I would just rather have Batgirl, Nightwing, and Robin all separate instead of one. Same reason that I decided to place the Scott Snyder Batman Companion in the D tier as well. Batman Family, the Bronze Age Omnibus, C tier. I am partly intrigued by some of the stories, but again, it's something that I will prefer in finest over the Omnibus format. Next on the list are the second volume of the Batman Gotham Adventures. And I'm sure that this will be printed out, so we already have Omnibus Volume 1 on the way. I'm going to put this in C tier. I know that it's coming. It's just not too high of a priority for me right now to be interested in that aspect of it all. The same goes for the Alan Burnett and Paul Dini Batman, the animated series continues. So these adventures continue omnibus with comics that span from 2020, 2023. Some of the stories in there are quite fun. It's just, again, it's something that is not too high on my list, but I understand why people might be engaged in wanting to see this. We got the Elseworlds omnibus for Batman. I also am tempted to put this in D tier, but I'm going to put this in C tier just primarily because I know that, well, not that I know, but I hope that it's coming soon, and I hope that Volume 1 sales were more than enough to pitch a Volume 2. Again, please do not take that out of context. I know nothing. Batman Elseworlds Omnibus Volume 2. I'm going to put this in D tier. I don't know if the sales were good enough to put in Volume 1, but it's also something where I just prefer having stories individualized than in a large chunk and collection of volumes. And it hurts because a lot of those stories, unfortunately, aren't going to get reprinted either way, but it's also something that I acknowledge where I don't know if I need every single Elseworld story on my shelf. I know that it's different for some people, at least for me, that's what I feel. I'm also going to put the Batman Brave and the Bold anthology series. There were some stories in here that I quite liked, but it's not anything of note where I'm going, that's great. And we've already seen the Mitch Gerrits and Tom King Batman Brave and the Bold series collected elsewhere. That's actually how I would prefer that fit. Instead of a larger collection of these, keep it small, keep it simple with the trade paperbacks. We've got the Bruce Wayne returning omnibus, and this is a quite interesting omnibus, even though I put a Batman and Robin cover here. You get stuff by Tony S. Daniel, David Hine, Jet Winnick. I am going to place this into C tier just because it is a big gap filler that we do not have on our shelves. The mapping on it, again, you're looking at random issues of Batman and Detective Comics smashed together, and this is also, again, something that I will prefer to have in DC Finest format over the regular omnibus format. And the same also goes for, I feel really bad about this. I'm not the biggest fan of Contagion or the Contagion Legacy Aftermath at all. I prefer reading No Man's Land. This is just me as a fan speaking. It's just not something that directly speaks to me, but a lot of people will have it. The only reason that this was placed in C and not in D is because I had a high historical significance and gap filler score on these. So these could have definitely been higher, but they're also not something that I immediately need right now. And with Finest continuing to move on, I really would like that era collected in that particular way where it's more comprehensive than what omnibuses might have to offer. We're looking at the 1 year later Detective Comics Omni, and we're going to have stuff by Paul Dini in this omnibus, especially the face-to-face story. One of my favorite stories from that particular era of Batman. And just because of the double dip, I am going to have to put this into D tier. It's really hard to separate, again, some of the material because you're looking at, okay, the Paul Dini omnibus exists. I like the Paul Dini stuff. I know that you're missing the James Robinson stuff in this particular omnibus, but it's also something where I acknowledge, again, like the gap filler isn't as big as you'd think it is. So even if you are collecting some of the missing issues, I just think that there is more merit to at least the omnibuses that we have now versus the ones that we previously had before, or the ones that we are surmising would be there. Dick Grayson Batman. This is the Batman by Morrison Companion. A lot of these are technically Morrison Companions. I'm going to put this in the B tier. Same reason why I placed the Bruce Wayne Returns portion of this in the C tier, although this is a tier higher. The major reason... Major reason is I just remember reading an issue and it cracked me up because I don't know if I would call Tony Stanley the strongest writer. I quite like his storytelling and art. And by storytelling, I mean on the panels versus actually creating stories. But the fondest memory I have of it was texting somebody, hey, Dick Grayson is flirting with Helena Bertolini Huntress. And Barbara Gordon can hear on the comm. She's like, what are you two guys talking about? I just thought that it was funny. And maybe it's because of that, it's just a tier too high, but it's going to go into B tier, at least for me. And will go nicely next to your Batman and Robin omnibus, or the Grant Morrison omnibus of Batman Volume 2, to be more accurate and precise there. Ghostmaker and Batman Incorporated, gonna go into the D tier. I did not care for this era of Batman Incorporated when it came out. This was by Ed Brisson. I think John Timms was on art. I remember reading it in singles, just was not at all interested. We also have the Gotham by Gaslight. We also have the Gotham by Gaslight omnibus. Also going to go into B tier, or sorry, D tier. This is something where I acknowledge that I think having the Absolute that's coming out later this year is fine. Having the Elseworlds omnibus is going to be fine for this. Just something that I am not particularly interested in collecting as a whole. I think this would honestly make more sense as a deluxe rather than a full-blown out omnibus. Have a deluxe collecting all of those different stories, place it into one, and leave it happily ever after. Gotham Knights is going to end up on B. I know that I spoke very oddly about the Action Comics Weekly. I just prefer a lot of this material in Batman Gotham Knights over Action Weekly. There's also something where I don't mind having this split. I obviously, we've seen a lot of the stories be collected in other creators' omnis or other Batman omnis. But again, this is something that I do not mind. When it comes to a larger collection, I think having all that is fine and dandy. I Am Batman by John Ridley. This is going to go in C tier. I remember when the news came out that we were going to have a Black Batman, we're going to have Luke Fox replace Bruce. I just remember the outrage that came about because of it. And then it ended up being a nothing burger because plans for both Future State and the I Am Batman book had shifted so much that it didn't necessarily make all too much sense to place Luke back into the forefront or the light of it all. And I think having something like that, which is an unfortunate capsule of time, there is merit to that on a bookshelf, but it's not something that I am willing to look back on with heavy interest. So that's going to go into C tier. And in that same action, the Nightfall Aftermath is also going into C tier. I'm not the biggest fan of Nightfall, admittedly. I think it's a more than fine story. It's just not a compelling story enough to me to propose, and I don't think that having it all inside of an omnibus with the stuff that came after would work in anything of that light and sense. That being said, it's not D tier because of the merit of it all. There is actually gap fillers that could be used for that particular omnibus, just not something that I want to see after Omnibus Volume 3 of that. Now, one book that is, you know where this is going. Yeah, Legend of the Dark Knight is going to head into S+ tier. There is a lot of commotion, I think rightfully so, from everybody who wants a piece of this book. Venom, Shaman, the not Holy Terror from Frank Miller, but you have a different version of Holy Terror. We need this in omnibus, and it's been criminal to see this not be placed out to a larger omnibus. So that's going to go into S+ tier. Another dream book for me, the new Gotham by Greg Rucka and Sean Martin, bro. That needs to be printed out. I know that we've had the 4 white and black trade paperbacks. Those which were beautifully designed, by the way. Really kicking myself that I never got to get the trade paperbacks, but it's also something that I especially want in that particular format. So that's why it's going to end up into the S+ tier. Batman, the One Bad Day saga. This is going to go into D tier, and it's actually nothing against any of the creators on the book. I liked a lot of the stories here. We have it in box format. We have it in individual trade paperback format and standard size hardcover format, if I can recall. And the fit just feels weird. Just feels weird having that in an omnibus. I actually would prefer a box set over that. Call me crazy, but that is where that is all going to go. We got the Road to War Games omnibus, which would also coincidentally collect a good amount of Hush. This is going to go into C tier. If you have watched my video on the War Games omnibus, one video that if I were to go back and redo, I would do in a heartbeat. I just didn't have any of the materials, whether it be trade paperback placement of it on your shelf. It's something that I would want to re-upload, but this is going to go. Yeah, that went immediately into the C tier. So that's how I feel about that era, and I don't know if I want it visited. Although I will say the mapping is much better on that than say the Hush omnibus that was released by DC. Now, Shadows of the Bat. You know exactly where this is going. This is going to go into the S+ tier. This is another book that I am surprised that has not come out into omnibus format just yet. So I'm waiting on that, but hopefully we can get it, at least on that front. Streets of Gotham, I prefer the Dini stuff, but all of the stuff that I want in Streets of Gotham is already in the Dini omnibus, so there's no really any point for me. And it's also something that if I were to get it, just like Batman Confidential, and just like a lot of the other books I talked about in that era, please give those to me in DC Finest format. Next on the list, we have the 1980s Omni, also S+ tier. I really love the Munch stuff. Wolfman, Roy Thomas, you want to talk about all of these different creators and just an enjoyable time to get on Batman. If you have not read the Red Skies DC Finest trade paperback yet, I would strongly suggest reading that before moving on to other things. Batman Strikes, and before I get into Batman Strikes, this is going to be a lot of my thinking and process on books that tie into TV shows, cartoons, or video games. There's a good chance that I have watched, maybe it is a particular video game or something, or watched a TV show, played a particular video game, and the only thing that I want is the game. I do not care for the TV show comics, don't care for the video game comics. You're going to see a lot of that, with the exception, I think, of one or two on my list. Again, when you get to 663 books, your mind just turns to mush. Batman, one of my favorite shows, actually. This is a cult favorite, and this is also one of favorites for me. This is going to go in C tier, and I feel like I explained enough to be upfront on that as well. The Batman Black Case book is already getting a deluxe, also going into C tier. That being said, I'm really excited that they are going to be reprinting the 1986 UK annual, which was Grant Morrison's first ever comic book of Batman that they worked on. Do not need it in omnibus, and I think we're going to keep it fine as far as that is all concerned. Next is the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series, another show that I watched when I was a kid. Also going to go into C tier for the exact same reason that I placed the Batman Strikes, again, omnibus. We have the Batman Bronze Age omnibus. I know that this is going to get an omnibus some point soon. We already gotten confirmation in DC on that front. So it's just a matter of time when they decide to do it. Maybe they get a pushover. This is going to go into B tier for me. And it would be higher, but S+ for me would have probably been the Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 1, and that is already being reprinted. There are other books that are higher on my priority list, even if I can sort of tell the patterns that, okay, DC is actually considering doing something like this. We have the Dark Knight Strikes Again, or the Dark Knight Saga by Frank Miller that would collect Dark Knight Strikes Again, Master Race, and The Golden Child. This is interesting for me because while I will say that I will prefer having this in a deluxe edition or an absolute, I'm going to put this in B tier. I think that there's enough, again, more than enough merit to put Year 1 and Dark Knight Returns and Strikes Again, Master Race, or Dark Knight 3, and then the final piece of it all with Golden Child into B. Just having it all there succinct and throughout so you can see the progression of Frank Miller. For some, it's biblical. For me, it's an appreciation for the form that he has given comics and how people have emulated that. So I think for that, it's going to go into the B tier. One thing that's going to end up in the C tier is the Batman Dark Knight, first started by David Finch until it gets into other creators. Something that makes sense for a gap filler, and also I can see happening soon because DC has already put out 3 of the other Batman omnibuses. And I'm talking for New 52, and I'm talking about Batman, Batman and Robin, and also Detective. This has not gotten an omnibus yet, so that will stay there. We have the Batman graphic novels. This is also going to go into the B tier, and it's less so that I don't want them. It's just, do I want to see Batman, Son of the Demon, Batman, The Killing Joke, and all of these other different graphic novels placed into one? I think the format is kind of funky and weird, but I can totally see why somebody might want this, and I'm partly interested in the case of that too. Post-Crisis, the reason to why this isn't higher for me is because I already have every single one of those post-Crisis issues through the 3 DC Finest of Batman that we have gotten from Year 1 and Year 2, The Killing Joke and Other Stories, and also Death in the Family. That's why it's not higher, and if those hadn't existed, that would absolutely be in the S+ tier. Next on the list, we have the Silver Age Omnibus Volume 3. This is also going to go into the C tier. And I think I'm also comfortable with that particular following, because we already have omnibuses 1 and 2. This is something that I will prefer to read in the DC Finest format. We've got the Batman White Knight universe, also going to end up in C, and I think the reason to why, at least from my formula, was because we already have this in so many different other formats. Deluxe, we have an absolute of White Knight coming out in both color and black and white. I'm just going to keep that in C tier. It's less that I don't want it, maybe necessarily, because I understand why we would want something like this. Somebody wants something like this. It's just that I have no particular use for that so far at all just yet. We've got the Batwing New 52 Omnibus. This is another interesting cut, and only because of the Batman I Am Batman book that I talked about earlier. Also going to go in C tier. Next on the list, we also have Batman, or Batwoman, I should say. I say Batman? This is Batwing. This is the Batwing New 52 Omnibus. Apologies to Jimmy Palmiotti before I move on. Batwoman by Andreyko and Marguerite Bennett. So this would be all of the latter half of the New 52, which I accidentally misspoke. Shout out to the one person who caught my error. And also the Rebirth era, which would have Steve Epting art. I'm going to put this in C tier. I think the best Batwoman material, at least for me, for that era, comes in the format of the Detective Comics by James Tynion Omnibus. Everything in there, fantastic Batwoman stuff. I just found the solo stuff here quite middling, to be completely honest with you. And something that I can totally see them putting in a compendium, I'm going to put that out in the world. Do not take that as any indication as far as what they'll print. I'm going to put the Birds of Prey by Chuck Dixon in the C tier, because it's got a lot of great Phil Noto covers. I just like the Gail Simone stuff more than Chuck Dixon. So that's why it's going to go into the C tier. Next on the list, we got the Kelly Thompson Birds of Prey run, a run that I picked up in singles, and I am going to place this into the S tier. The only reason to why it's not in the S plus tier is because you can get all of these quite immediately at your comic book store. The scarcity on these isn't as difficult as some of these other books. That being said, if you have not had a chance to read that particular run, one of the most fun runs, in my personal opinion, that on DC, and it's also something that I hope, because we've seen DC do it with the Tom Taylor Nightwing omnibuses. They have not been afraid of collecting material after the future state event. So Infinite Frontier, Dawn of DC, that era, I can totally see them pushing out a Kelly Thompson Omni in the next 2-3 years, if not quicker. The next book on the list is a Simone Bedard and McKeever fill-in issues. This hurts. I'm going to put this in A. And the only reason this is going to go in A is just because of the awkward missing issues that are in the second omnibus of the Gail Simone Birds of Prey, Volume 2. I want them to collect that all in full, and I don't know if it's going to come soon, but at last that is what we do have. We got the Black Canary and Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. This is going to go into C tier. I actually thought this run was all right. It was quite fine. It had really nice Yannick Paquette covers. Not something that's high on the priority list for me. And we got this Wierzynski New 52 run. Also going to go into D tier. I don't particularly care for that iteration of Birds of Prey, and it's completely different from the Gail Simone trio of it all, if you will. Next on the list, we got Bizarro. This is going to go into D tier, and the same explanation for the Batman villains applies to Bizarro. The same thing I was going to say also goes for Black Adam, which is also going to go into D tier. I'd rather have a deluxe edition of the Dark Age hardcover and his story in 52. Of course, the World War III of it all, with Jeff Johns taking care of the mold right after the Black Rain book. It would just be a really weird collection, and I think I'm going to be comfortable with putting that into D tier. We're going to go talk about the earliest Black Canary comics right now, or two of them anyways. I'm going to put both of these into B tier. This is the post-crisis and the early Golden Age material for Dinah. If we can give Ollie some love, which is really hard to do, I think we can also do the same for Dinah. I think she's a fantastic character. And like I mentioned with the Action Comics Weekly, I would rather prefer reading that in a post-crisis omnibus of Dinah rather than, oh, hey, we got some random collections of other stories as well too. So that's going to go comfortably into the B tier. The next book here is the Black Lightning Omnibus from 1977 to 2018. I'm gonna put this into B tier as well. I think that there is enough material to prioritize at least some portions of this character's comics. I will say that I don't know if they're ever going to do it. I think this would probably be more appropriate for a DC Finest than an omnibus. That being said, it would be really cool to have this in some form of reprinted material. If we can get Sergeant Rock out nicely, I think we can also get I think we can also get Black Lightning out nicely too. We got the Black Hawk, Golden Age quality, Modern Era, and Silver Age as far as the next 3 collections are concerned. These are going to go into C, D, and C respectively. So we have the Golden Age going in C, Silver Age going in C, and Modern Era going in D. And the reason to why, not only creators, and because Crisis on Infinite Earths quite changed literally everything. I also acknowledge that I had a lot of fun reading some of those comics in the DC Finest War book. I also like Blackhawk more of, well, Lady Blackhawk anyways, when she's over in the Birds of Prey. I just prefer those stories over the War comics, and I prefer War being all told and placed into one than having it all split out. Same also goes for the New 52 material of it all as well. We've also got Blue Beetle and the Mystery Men, the Golden Age Omnibus. We've also got the Charlton years and also just regular him in the Golden Age. These are also all going to go into C. Nothing against Dan Garrett, both with 2 T's and with 1 T. That's something that I'm immediately wanting to jump the gun on. I also say this because DC did do a printing of the Silver Age material in the Blue Beetle DC Finest format. It's a very thin volume, the thinnest that we've had so far, but I'm more than comfortable with keeping it there for Dan Garrett. Now, Ted Kord, different story, B tier. They think there's more than enough to justify having that all in one particular omnibus, and I think that he is quite an extraordinary character. Quite an extraordinary character to the point where Maxwell Lord decided to take him out of the game completely. Read Infinite Crisis and the Olmec Project if you want to figure that all out. Now, these are going to be interesting. The 2 other Blue Beetle runs. We got Jaime Reyes on the 2006-2009 run and the 2011 run. Both of these are actually going to go in the C tier, as much as it hurts, and I'm going to explain why, at least for this front. This had a high score for me in the want category, but we've also had recently 3 trade paperbacks that are readily available and probably might get replaced with a DC Finest at some point in time. I don't know when that time is, but I'm assuming that at least in the next 5 years or so, we can definitely see that trend continuing. And I think that is the preferred case for Jaime over the rest. This got into the C tier, even if I'm not a big fan of the Rebirth series. Guys, I'm so sorry. I think it's just, unfortunately, a couple creators past their prime. In terms of the Rebirth stuff, although you have the New 52 stuff that's thrown there in as well. Just the fitting of it all. I don't like it when eras are placed into a combination. I want those things separate, and that's why I'm going to keep that into the C tier. Same goes for Blue Devil. Nothing against the character, but I just prefer this stuff in a completely different format than the rest. Booster Gold by Dan Jurgens and Jeff Katz and Rick Remender. This is going to go into the A tier. This is a run that most people talk about when you think about Booster Gold, when you think about runs that make sense in the thick of it all, especially coming out from 52. You had the whole entire storyline with him in 52. I'm pretty sure was being spearheaded by Jeff Johns, would have obviously co-write the first 2 arcs of the book. That's going to go into A tier. I wish that it was going to... It didn't end up higher on the list, quite interestingly enough, but I'm very happy that DC has printed out material, and just exactly like the Blue Beetle run here, this also had a negative effect. This probably would have ended up in S tier had those 3 thick complete series trade paperbacks not come out. Blue Gold Man, or Booster Gold Man, or Green Lantern, whatever you want to call him. I'm also going to put the Classic Omnibus in the A tier as well. This is also something that I have a buddy of mine who lives in Canada. He collects Booster Gold commissions. He had a Dan Jurgens commission as his profile picture on Discord for quite a while. One of the most fantastic gentlemen you'll ever meet on this planet. Keeps talking nothing but great things about the series. I have also read some of it. and I would like it in a larger format. We're also going to put the Boy Commandos, the Golden Age comics by Jack Kirby. I'm going to put this in B tier because I enjoyed what I have seen of these. We had in the comic shop that I used to work at, we had bargain bins and whatnot. Some of those issues went up in bargain bins, and just because of the war DC Finest that I talked about earlier, I'm more intrigued by some of it all, so I'm going to put that in the B category. D category from Brainiac, same reason as the Batman villains. Brainiac is not to be replaced by Brave and the Bold. We got the early years, so this would collect everything before the Batman of it all. I'm going to place this in the B tier just because we haven't had some of those things collected. Again, the scarcity of it all, and also the fact that, again, it's not Superman, Wonder Woman, or Batman. The only difference that I have, at least as far as this goes for the rest, is that this is, again, another thing that I could see DC Finest eventually placing in with the Team Ups book. We also have we have a long straight list of C's. First of which is the Brave, actually, before that, Brave and the Bold by Mark Waid and George Perez and Jerry Ordway. This is going to go into A tier. If you want a stark reminder of what Hal Jordan did in the late 1980s and early 1990s, that is definitely the place to go. Also, that Wonder Woman Power Girl team up I quite enjoyed, and is also in the Wonder Woman Origins and Omens DC trade paperback, or DC Finest trade paperback as well. All right, here are the couple of C's I'm talking about. So, Carrie Bates Captain Atom, along with the Captain Atom the modern years, again, just because of the fitting of it all, and I think that you could separate these are, I think, are better suited for the Finest than I think in an omnibus. These are going to go into the C tier for me, although people should read them if you want a better understanding to how this character operates outside of exploding. If that's your thing, definitely go check it out. Same thing with Captain Carrot and his amazing crew. I quite actually enjoyed the little bit of material of Captain Carrot we got in the lead up to Infinite Crisis in Jeff Johns' Teen Titans. It's just not enough for me to actually want to go out and say, man, I really want an omnibus of this. Not to the point where I don't care about it, but to the point where I'm kind of I'll get to it when I get to it. And we have a whole slew of Cartoon Network material that is also going to end up in C. We got Action Party, or we got Action Pack, we have Block Party with Cartoons, and we also have Cartoon Network Presents. So we have the Collects Presents starring in one-shots. That's all going to be collected in there. Catwoman by Will Pfeiffer. This is also the era where Catwoman is infamously pregnant. This is going to end up in the C tier. It's not a particular era of Catwoman that I care for. I also realized that in all the Catwoman material that has been printed out so far, I don't know if I'm just like a big fan of any of most of her solo stories. I think most of my favorites come from that early part of Brubaker, which just feels so weird. That being said, we also do have the early years. So this is the Silver and Golden Age omnibus that's also going to end up in C tier. I actually have a lot more respect now for the Silver Age of it all, or seeing that costume play in and out because of the DC Finest that was released, or the Red Skies DC Finest that was released not too long ago for Batman. I actually really like that costume. The more and more I see of it, it feels very iconic, honestly, for its main point in line in time. We're going to move on to the New 52 Omnibus, which is going to go into B tier. This is Volume 2. Volume 1 would probably ended up in the C tier for me because I'm not a big fan of the Ann Nocenti or the Judd Winnick portions of it all. What I am a fan of are the Genevieve Valentine portions of the New 52 run that I don't think get talked about as much enough as possible. So that's going to end up on the B tier for me. A tier for Ram V's Catwoman. Probably would have ended up lower, at least in the B tier, had it not been for, it's just mainly the Ram V run that I want. And if I have to go through, no disrespect to Joel Jones, just was not a big fan of the run. The next book here is the Jim Balent Catwoman run. And the reason that it's not a priority for me is because we already have Finest of it and I don't need it in any other format. No shade to Jim Balent or anybody who likes the run. Not something that I'm particularly interested in because we're almost done with collecting that era in DC Finest format. Volume 3 of that era comes out in December later this year. We got Challengers of the Unknown. And the only reason to why I am partly interested in it is because of word of mouth. I've gotten word of mouth. This is the low sale and Chaikin 1991 to 2005 years. Although the fit isn't as well, I'm going to put that in B tier. I was thinking about putting it in A tier. I'm going to put that in B tier just because I feel that even though the format, again, when you collect an amount of comics in the span of 14 years, that is a lot. But I am also willing to push against the bounds when I see, oh, hey, Tim Sale worked on that, and I quite like Tim Sale. Challenge of the Unknown in the Silver Age, that's going to go in A tier. Cult classic for me, cult classic for a lot of people, and I think that they should get a collection at some point. Got the Cameron Chase omnibus. J.H. Williams' art is the only reason to why this is not in D tier. And I promise you that I have no other notes aside from that. And next we have the Checkmate by Greg Rucka and Jesus Says Omni. If you have watched my videos, you will exactly know why I placed that in S+ tier. Again, check out my video with Kody for more explanation on that. We also got the Paul Kupperberg stuff that was heavily featured in the, quite oddly, the Peacemaker DC Finest. I'm going to put that in B tier. I just don't find this as interesting as the Greg Rucka of it all. So apologies to anyone there. We've got Congo Bill and the Forgotten Heroes with forgotten material of Animal Man and Cave Carson. This is going to go into D. Just not particularly interested in the Jungle Boy. Next on the list, we got Creeper. I don't particularly care for any iteration of the the character. I would rather see him fight somebody than see him lead an omnibus by himself. We got Cyborg, the modern years. We got Semper, we got Wolfman, David F. Walker, and I'm sure that the Kenny Porter Dawn of DC stuff would also be collected in here. Unfortunately, what you see with some characters is that they are very much stronger in aspects of a team versus being solo. I unfortunately think that Victor Stone falls into that. He's more interesting when he's bouncing off of other characters than he is by his lonesome self. And so for that reason, I'm going to put that in the D portion of the tier list. Next on the list, we got the Damage, the 90s Omnibus by Tom Joyner and Bob Merriman. This, quite interestingly, is going to go into B tier. I'm actually quite fascinated with some of the stuff. And I think the reason to why I decided to place this higher on my list than, say, others, it's just the premise. The premise actually quite makes sense to me. And it's not something that I typically say about a lot of books, but I'm more than willing to check at least the original portions out because of word of mouth. So I've never read the material, but I'm going to put that in the B tier. Now, the material that I have read, Antonius Daniel and Robert Venditti stuff, a lot of these new Age of Heroes books that released after Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Dark Knight's Metal, I'm not a big fan of. I just remember reading this in singles. I was picking up every single issue in singles. I was working at a movie theater at the time, needed some down stuff to read. And it was also the first time after I had graduated high school that I really got a chance to sit down and enjoy some of these books. Damage was not for me. Next is a Dark Side Omni. And it's the same reason to why I put all of these villain omnis down below. If I want to read Dark Side, I will read Grant Morrison's JLA. I will read Jack Kirby's Fourth World. I will read all these other different stories. Do not need Dark Side in that at all. The Dawn of DC Minibus. Now this is interesting because I want all of this out in one particular book. This is portions of the Dawn of DC era, so I'm thinking of stuff not only from the We Are Legends line, but also Hawkgirl, the Cyborg book that I talked about earlier, Superboy, Unstoppable Doom Patrol. This is going to hurt. I'm going to put this in C tier. And it's nothing of the fact that I don't want it. It's just the fit. That's just a lot of stories into one where I would rather have deluxe editions of them. And this is also being filmed at some point after the DC solicitation stream. I think there is still a big reason to why we should have deluxes, not just omnis, as far as some of this material is concerned. And this exact omni, the DC Legends, or the Dawn of DC omni, the sampler, is exactly how I feel about that particular line or way of thinking. We got the DC Challenge and Commandi Challenge Omnibus. I read some of this material. Again, we're going to the comic shop. They would also have, if you bought at least $25 worth of books, you also got a free sampler or a free collection of different books. So they'd slide in like 6 comics into a sleeve and give it to you for free. Got some of these issues. I was not a big fan of them, so that's going to go into the D tier. DC Comics Bombshells. I'll admit the only reason that why I was interested in the first place of this, there were really cool statues. I think it was the Lois Lane and the Supergirl ones that I was particularly fascinated by. I'm going to put this in C tier. I like the Emmanuel Lupacchino covers. Take it or leave it with the series, but you get what you get as far as that is all concerned. All right, next we have a whole slew of DC events. Just going to list these off. We got Armageddon, 2001 by Dan Jurgens. Going to put that in D tier. Anima. Man, it's going to kill me. We got Anima, Argus. This is the Bloodlines Aftermath. And as far as Bloodlines is concerned, I'm going to put this in D tier because I think that this can be better collected elsewhere. Again, something where I will be more interested in reading DC Finest instead of reading it in an omnibus. We've got Convergence. And if you have heard my joke about it before, I've told people that this is the Omni where DC decided to use this as an excuse to move to Burbank. Or this was printed during the time from their offices moving from New York to Burbank. We'll keep it there. Next, we got Countdown to Final Crisis. Next on the list, we got Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, this is interesting, again, because I think that there is merit for an omnibus of the death of every single universe, all put into one. I'm going to place this in the C tier. Again, I'm going to be more than happy with the Finest, but I place this higher because I think that it should come out in that particular form in some way as well. With some extras too, but I think the Absolute will be more than fine on that as well. Day of Judgment, this was going to be higher, but this I think could be a deluxe instead of an omnibus. I think that there's more than enough there as far as a book is concerned to have this in a some merit catalog instead of, oh, this needs to be there. And it also got reprinted recently in the JSA Compendium 1. I'm going to keep it there just for safekeeping and whatnot. The next book that we have on the list is the DCKO event. The DCKO, of course, the most recent event to come out from the DC line. I can totally see this being placed out. If we're going to be getting the Absolute Power Omnibus within a 2-year time frame, this should be coming out in the same-ish time frame as well. I'm going to put that in B tier, and the reason it's not higher is because it's not my favorite DC event, but I had a lot more fun with this one than others. Eclipso, The Darkness Within. Also going to put that in D. Final Crisis, Aftermath. You only need Final Crisis. I'm going to put that in D tier. I'm not a big fan of the mapping in the omnibus anyways. The only things that you need to read for Dark Crisis are everything in that Absolute edition that you should pick up at some point. Final Night, the complete omnibus. I'm going to put this in C. I think this was one of the ones where I looked at it and said, you know what? This actually might have, at least premise anyways, this would be one to keep a hold of. Future State, I just remember being locked down in the pandemic, just hearing all of these different things about Future State, 5G, and how it was going to shape the DC universe. And then Dan Didio got fired, and they completely shifted course. I just remember talking about this with Philip Kennedy Johnson, about how much some of his books changed because of this. But I think because of this event, we're all better out of it than the actual premise. I'm going to put that in D tier nonetheless, because I don't really care for much of it. All right, Genesis. Another one where I'm going to put in D tier. I'm just not interested. Heroes in Crisis. I know some people probably have some misconceptions about this because I was one who tried to push for Heroes in Crisis issues 1 through 9 for the Tom King Batman omnibus because I just thought it made sense, at least for volume 2. Where else would you put it? I did not pick up issue number 9. I just remember being so irate at the previous 2 issues. I just said I could not do it. And the thing that sucks is that I bought all of the variant covers as well. They had like mugshot variants of crime scenes. It was, I think, a really I won't want to say well marketed, but the marketing did their job. I just would like to forget about it as quickly as possible. Infinite Crisis Aftermath. So we've got some Aftermath series and the 2006 version of Infinity Inc. I'm also going to go into C tier just to place it right next. And this makes more sense, I think, than the Final Crisis Aftermath, which you don't need. You really do not need. We also have the Infinite Crisis tie-ins omnibus. So everything that wasn't in the Infinite Crisis omnibus or the lead up to, or not even just the lead up, but things that were concurrent with the Jeff Johns and Phil Jimenez event. I'm going to put that in C because I think that there's some of those series that probably might never be collected either otherwise. But I also think that you should read the individual series and not necessarily just stick to, oh, this is what's in the omnibus in that format. Ooh, the Jokerizing of it all. I'm going to put Invasion in B. I think that there is more than enough weight to placing this higher on the list than, say, some others. We got Joker, The Last Laugh. I'm going to also put this in C because we're seeing, at least most recently, with the third compendium of Nightwing. Not granted, all of it is not in there because the whole point is not, oh, it's the Joker Last Laugh. It's, oh, Nightwing just happens to be part of Joker's Last Laugh. This is probably going to be in at some point, but it's also something that I'm not really, I just don't know if I want it ASAP. So that's why it's in C. We got Legends of the Dead Earth. Also going to put this in C. I am also going to place, we got Millennium, which might include the Guardians stuff in this as well. There's new Guardians in here. I am going to put Millennium in B, and the same reason why I put Invasion in B. Next on the list, we've got the 1 year later omnibus. Read the books, guys. I hate mapping. I know why it's there. We've had precedents for stuff like this before. You can do better. You can legitimately do better on that front. Next on the list are the Pulp Heroes annuals. Again, DC Finest. I'd rather read these portions in a DC Finest format than anything else. On the other part of the list, Silver Age by Mark Waid. I've actually heard nothing but good things about the series, and I feel like a fake Mark Waid fan for not reading it, but I actually am quite interested in that particular event, so I'm going to put that in the B tier. Year 1 annuals. A whole bunch of annuals were printed in the mid-90s. 1994, 1995. I'm going to put that in D tier because, again, read the regular books. I don't need those in a format that's bigger. Underworld Unleashed. The only reason why it's going in the B tier is, again, Mark Waid and Howard Porter. Earlier Mark Waid and Howard Porter working together before they got onto JLA. So a shout out to those two. You're the villain, man. I was going to put this in an F tier because this was actually, believe it or not, this was the event that made me quit DC for a while and switched over to Marvel, at least primarily Marvel. Up until I want to say mid-2022, I got interested in DC again. Just don't care. It's a traumatizing portion for me. I remember spending about $400 on DC singles every single month, at least for that particular era of DC, or in 2019. But man, House of X Powers of 10, that was just more riveting and exciting for me. So yeah, I'm happy with keeping that in D, and I'm not going to be moving it further. You got High School Stories from DC. This is the DC Focus, the complete stories, which would include Touch, Fraction, Kinetic, and Hard Time. I'm going to keep this in C. There's some merit to it, but it's also something that I'm not too particularly engaged with. And then we got 2 DC manga books. First of which is Batman Justice Buster and Joker 1 Operation placed together. I'm going to put that in D tier. I'm also going to put Superman Messi in this as well. I would rather have this in like a nice tankobon hardcover format instead of deciding to place it all into one Omni. I think it would be better for readers that way so that you aren't confused as to, wait, why is this a DC Omnibus? I'd rather have it in a larger deluxe size tankobon format instead. We're also going to be looking at the Pride Anthology series. And while I thought about placing this B for elevation and purposes and why not, I'm going to put this in C in the reason that the Super Sons omnibuses exist or have existed. Every single year they would probably have to re-update all of the issues that have been printed for the Pride Anthology books. And I don't know if that would make sense for DC. I think it'd be better and smarter to place those out, standard size hardcovers, trade paperbacks, put it out to the book market so people can know that there is celebration to be had with these characters, with these stories. Not an omnibus format. But the reason I'm putting it in C, because it does make sense to at least place it somewhere. We're going to move on to the special Blue Ribbon Digest. This is going to go in D. Again, read the books. The same is also going to be going for the special series. You're going to see that for a couple of other series. The same reason why Action Comics Weekly was a C. This is going to go in the D tier for me. DC Superhero Girls Omnibus, which is a cartoon tie-in. Keep it for the young fellas. Let them read the digest size books. I don't think I need this in a DC Omnibus format. I'm going to go the same, and this is going to hurt for all of the creators that are on this. So for Bernie Wrightson, Jack Kirby, John Paul Leon, rest in peace, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. We've also got Keith Giffen, rest in peace to him as well. I'm going to place those in the D tier because I would just rather read those creators in a completely, just in a different format, like maybe a bit like in the regular ongoing set, instead of, oh, we just have a whole bunch of random stories by this. I am very much averse to creator omnis in that way, so I don't think it makes as much sense to me. Now these I would rather have in full, like a full deluxe format. So for example, if you're looking at Supergirl, Woman Tomorrow, Human Target, or even the most recent Batman, the story with him and Eduardo Rizzo, I'm talking about Paul Dini, I'd rather have those separately. So all of the Paul Dini and Tom King inline and out-of-line omnibuses that are going to go in C tier. More merit for me than these because these are standalones. But again, the format, I'm looking at it and saying I'd rather have these in deluxes, trade paperbacks, than the omnibus format. We've also got the DC Universe Online Legends. Play the game. I'm not going to go farther than that. DC versus Aliens versus Predator. I know that a lot of people want this more than I do. If anybody is out there, please invite me to watch Predator with you, and I'd probably rank it higher. Next on the list is DC Vampires. Also going to go and see some fun stuff, but not enough for me to want an omnibus of it. I think I'm happy with the collections that we've gotten. DC Swords and Sorcery, including Hercules Unbound. I'm going to put this in C tier as well, as much as it hurts for me to do. You got the Western comics. I prefer this in finest format, but I think just for everybody else, if you have not gotten a chance to read these characters, Vigilante, El Diablo, Tomahawk, I would definitely suggest doing so in that anthology way. We got the modern omnibus of Deadman. I would rather read this in finest format, so I'm going to put that in D tier. Deathstroke Incorporated. So these are books 2021 and following. This would also probably, if I were to map it my way, include the Shadow War crossover. I'm going to put this in C. I had this in C. I think the reason why is completionism gap, but it's also something that I'm not really looking forward to. Deathstroke New 52. We have Rob Liefeld on for a couple of issues. Not really my cup of tea. Omnibus Volume 2 by Deathstroke the Terminator. We had Volume 1 released not too long ago, and I could totally see them pushing out Volume 2 soon. I don't know when, but it's also something that's not too high on the list right now. We got Demon Etrigan, the Bronze Age Omnibus by Jack Kirby. From what I've seen, that absolute format is going to be quite exquisite, and for that reason, it's not high on my list. And the same goes for the Burn Run, and also anything post-Crisis by Grant Zemeckis and Garth Ennis as well. Just something I'm not too particularly interested in. Demon Knights, the New 52 Omnibus, and I think the only reason why this was higher is because I could totally see this happening. They're printing off a lot of New 52 Omnibuses, so you probably might have already seen with Catwoman New 52 Omnibus, the Earth 2 New 52 Omnibus. I think it's only a matter of time before DC actually moves in and publishes some of these out, which is why that is higher. Detective Comics before Batman, so everything from Detective 1 through 26. I'm going to be placing this in the C tier. For historical purposes only, and I think it's much more besides that, but I do see enough merit to putting something like that out because of the history of it. We've also got Dexter's Laboratory, a fantastic TV show. It's going to go in D tier. Next, we've got the Dial H for Hero. every single story from 1966 and onward. You want to call a phone a friend? Let me go ahead and change into a hero. This is going to go in the C tier for me. Doc Savage. If you guys are not checked out, I did a video with Mr. The person who runs over at the people over at Titan. His name, who is indeed slipping my mind, the person who created Gun Honey. I had a chance to talk with him a year ago. He's probably going to be back on the channel soon to talk about the upcoming brand new #1 issue. He talked me into Doc Savage. Just for that, I'm going to put that in B. I actually am quite interested to see what that material all lays in throughout. Dr. Fate by DeMatteis and Messner-Loebs. I'm surprised that this came out in a thicker trade paperback, but that's going to go in A tier. It makes sense for the characters, and I also think that it's something DC should look forward to placing in an omnibus format. We have Peak Comics, which is the 1990s Dr. Fate, or Fate, I should say. I'm not going to say anything more besides putting it in a D tier. Another one I'm interested in, again, just because of the historical aspects of it, this is the 1940 to 1986 Dr. Fate comics. I'm going to place that into the B tier, and I am happy with that as well for, again, historical purposes mainly. Another one that I'm looking just to have on my bookshelf, I think this would also fit better in a deluxe. I'm going to put the New 52 and post Dr. Fate in the C tier. Nothing against the character. I just think that it fits differently. Again, when you collect a particular era of books, I think having a splice or slicing it up would be more sound than anything else as far as that goes. All right, John Arcudi's Doom Patrol. This is going to end up in the A tier. I'm surprised that we have not had that gap filler yet. That's mainly the reason why it's going to stay there. Next is the Doomsday Omni. Same reason as all those other stupid Batman villain Omnis that were placed into a mapping, at least pre-Crisis. No for me. And I'm also going to say for Doomsday, you can read The Death of Superman in Omnibus, Absolute, and also in Compendium. You do not need to have another Superman Doomsday Omni. We have Dreamer. And with my methodology and just the way that I'm looking at this as a whole, I like her stories. I also think that we need to push her more outside of the collector's market and into the hands of readers who are young adults who might not have the money for an omnibus. Maybe they are looking at something else. I think that she, just like the DC Pride Omni, would serve better because Nicole Maines is constantly writing Dreamer. That omnibus would be updated a billion times. Give it to us in a different format and keep everything else separate on that front. We got the second part of Earth 2 New 52. I'm going to put this in A tier as well. Less so that it's weird because World's End isn't my favorite bit, but I can totally see them printing off a volume 2 just after volume 1, and I think that there is also, I think there has to be some merit, right? There has to be some reason as to actually placing an omnibus of that sort into the mix and the fold. So this would collect World's End and Society again for volume 2 of Earth 2 New 52. We've also got the Earth 1 books. And while I like some of them individually, I do not want them to put this in an Omni. I want this in deluxes, not the complete collections. I want these all, these separate volumes into one collective. Not one collective instance. We got one collective instance per run versus let's just smash everything together into one omnibus. I don't like the fit or form of that. We're going to look at Eclipso, the classic omnibus. Again, C tier. Nothing against Eclipso, just not too particularly interested. The same goes for Elongated Man. I'll read Detroit era and have my Elongated Man there. Do not take that out of context, please. Next, we have Enemy Ace. Again, I'll read this in the war. DC Finest, just not interested enough in the character. A former Nazi air pilot turned decently good guy. I don't know if that... I love war stories, but I don't know if that's my cup of tea. Firestorm by Jolly, Moore, and McDuffie. These are the Jason Rushiers of Firestorm. I'll put this in C. It's it's just something that doesn't really particularly pique my interest, although I am quite interested in the third part of the fitting or the mapping, which would be the McDuffie portions of that particular character. Firestorm Nuclear Man, you probably already know where this is going. This ended up in one of my top 10 slots, and it's also another book that I got introduced to because of the Suicide Squad DC Finest, and I really want them, really want them to print out that portion immediately and ASAP. Next on this particular list is the New 52 Omnibus. We got the Simone, I believe Van Sciver was on the run as well. I'm going to put this in the C tier. Not something that I need right now, but I also acknowledge that, again, just for the character's history, and this was also before we got to the Arrowverse version of Firestorm, that this would come in again at some point. Got the William Messner Loebs. Oh my goodness. Flash by William Messner Loebs, and also Flash by Supergirl. Let's go ahead and start with Cy Spurrier first of all. I'm going to put Cy Spurrier's run in B just because I did, and I think I enjoyed this run more than others, and I also talked about this with Cy Spurrier. Yeah, if you have a chance to, go ahead and check that video out. It's not something that I don't particularly not enjoy. It's just that it's not amongst my favorite Flash runs, but I did have a lot of fun enjoying that, and also reading his version of Bart. I think is one of the strongest that we've had in years. Go ahead and also look at Messner Loebs. I'm gonna put that in C. I think we all probably know that it'll come at some point. I just don't know when it is. Flash the Bronze Age. I was gonna put that in C. I really enjoy this material, but again, it's something that I will prefer in finest format. The Jeremy Adams run. Yeah, this is immediately going to jump into the I don't know why we haven't gotten a larger portion of this all. Kevin Shinnick's issues would also happily be in this omnibus, I think. It's just a matter of, I think, when DC decides to publish something like that out. And next up, we have the Jay Garrick stuff. This is also going to go in A for me. And only because we don't have a finest of that yet, and we've only had 2 finest so far. So the scarcity of it all, and also the fact that we need it, I think that this would be a great contender for an upcoming DC Omnibus. Next on the list, we have the Fastest Man Alive, a.k.a. the Jeff Johns companion, a.k.a. Bart Allen as Flash. I would advise, if you're looking for good material to read, look elsewhere. We're also going to go into Flash Forward Heroes in Crisis, the return of Wally West in DC Universe Rebirth 1. So if you're following Barry's adventures and Joshua Williamson and Carmen Diaz-Domenico and all those creators' Flash runs for Rebirth, you're following the Wally portions. I don't think a lot of this material is great, although Flash Forward I do find funny. The best parts of this mapping would actually be the speed metal portions in the death metal event. I actually quite enjoyed those stories. For, I guess, lack of better context and phrases. We've also got the Trial of the Flash, which is going to go into the C tier. Not that they're not going to do it. Again, the same reason as the Bronze Age. It's going to come out in finest at some point, and I think I'm more than happy with detailing all of that and whatnot. We've got the Forbidden Tales of the Dark Mansion, the Bronze Age Omnibus. This is going to go into the D tier. It's nothing against it. I just would like to have it in finest format as well. Forever People, it's going to go into the D tier too, because I would rather read this in a Kirby Omnibus or Kirby Absolute or Kirby DC Finest. Cosmic Odyssey, also going to go into the D tier. Although Cosmic Odyssey is part of a larger book called Fourth World and the New Gods. Nothing against Cosmic Odyssey, actually, by the way. I actually quite like Cosmic Odyssey. It's not something that is immediately on my list. Fox and Crow. Also going to go into the D tier. This eventually becomes Stanley and his monster, which I'll get to at some point later in this video. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. I don't mind this material, but it's also something that we've had in DC Complete Collection format, and I don't know if we particularly need this in omnibus format just as of yet, but it is definitely an option. This also, I think, would make sense for a... You know what it would make sense for? This would make sense for a deluxe edition type of book instead of an omnibus. But I think that is just my personal opinion. You've also got the Fringe comic books. Do not really have any interest in these, so those are going to go in D. Future Quest. Now that's actually different. It's going to go in B tier. If anybody has not read those Hanna-Barbera books, they are quite engaging. My favorite being the Jeff Parker and Doc Shaner team-ups. That's actually where I fell in love with Doc Shaner's art. I know a lot of people got to see Doc Shaner shine in the Strange Adventures DC 12-issue series with Mitch Gerads and Tom King, of course. But man, Shaner to me, he has shined on that and Convergence. Shazam. So if you're looking for some good Doc Shaner art, that is definitely some place to go. Future State Gotham. Not really a great book with Josh Williamson. Also not really one of my faves. I also have no idea how that lasted that long. For I thought that book was going to be canceled after 6 issues. It did not, and it just went on and on. We also have the Future's End, New 52 Omnibus. I have no want in some of these books, man. Ghosts also gonna go into the D tier. Again, give me an anthology collection of that. Now, one book that has the only reason that this almost got knocked down to S. This is one of my dream omnibuses. It is a fantastic book on different look and shade of Gotham. You also have Maps music. My gosh, man. Maps is one of the strongest characters that I've read in a while. Also, one of my favorite aside the line books from that era and point in time. We have the complete collection that's out, but now with the first year 6-issue limited series, I can totally see them upgrading to an omnibus at some point in the future. Next on the list, we have The Great Disaster featuring the Atomic Knights from 60 to 83. Again, when you're looking at omnibuses in that specific wavelength, going to be no bueno for me. Just too much on that front. Now, we have a whole lot of Green Arrow. A whole lot of Green Arrow to talk about, and a whole lot of Green Arrow, I think, to dissect. First, Winnick and Kreisberg. These are from 2007 to 2010, following the Archer's Quest omnibus that recently came out 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Isn't that long, or is it a year ago? Getting all my dates mixed up, but this is going to go in B. There's actually some excellent stories in here, and also some of my favorite Winnick stories as well in that particular omnibus. We've also got the Bronze Age of Green Arrow and Black Canary. This would follow the Lantern Omni as well. I'm going to also put this in B tier. I think that there's more than enough to have some of the stories, and also a look at to how writers at the time were handling with social issues. So if you want to look at the Green Arrow and Black Canary lens and viewpoint there, I think that's more than strong enough to have it all unlock. We've got the Green Arrow and Seven Soldiers of Victory, which would be a part of a Golden Age omnibus. I'm going to put that in C tier because I do like the Seven Soldiers of Victory, but it's also something that I also will admit I'm not too particularly interested in, aside from the fact that the Seven Soldiers are part of that omnibus. We've also got the Green Arrow Dawn of DC era. I'm not the biggest fan of the Williamson stuff, but by goodness. I also should point out that this omnibus, Green Arrow, I just realized, Green Arrow, Black Canary, that is the 2007-2010. It's not the follow-up to Archer's Quest, so I got the mapping on that one wrong. But anyways, just back to my point. Williamson stuff, not really a fave. Condit and Montos, best Green Arrow run, I think, since Grell. Gonna put that in B tier because we have one half of the run that I'm just not particularly a big fan of. We have the Judd Winnick. This is the one I'm talking about. The Judd Winnick specific and main omnibus. Also gonna go in B tier. Apologies to my friend who's a Green Arrow fan. I wish that I could have ranked some of these higher, but there's one book that is coming along. Well, we're about 200 something in, guys, and my camera decided to bail on me last minute, so we'll pick it. We'll pick this up right where we left off. Apologies for that, by the way, if I am voice cracking. Oh my goodness. We got Green Arrow, the Golden Age and Silver Age, which I'm also going to place in the C tier, and I think quite happily because I'm just not as interested in this material. I would rather just read Gardner Fox's Justice League of America if we are going to see stuff like this in the Silver Age, and that material I'm not really too particularly interested in as well. because none of the stories, I find anyways, are memorable. Now, one book that I think, interestingly enough, like I mentioned, is going to get a clear A tier for me. Yeah, Chuck Dixon's Green Arrow. This is the Connor Hawke series. I have no idea why this hasn't gotten a large collection yet. I'm probably going to jinx it and say that it'll probably be in a compendium. We've already seen a lot of other Chuck Dixon books get the compendium treatment. Primarily, I'm thinking about Nightwing and Robin, but it would be really nice to have nicely designed Green Arrow Omnis again after the Grell ones. Grell ones obviously are some of the, I think, best designed looking Omnis as far as Green Arrow is concerned. Now, I think Green Arrow probably deserves better as far as New 52 goes. That's going to go in D tier. Just get the Andrea Sorrentino, Jeff Lemire deluxe hardcover if you're looking for that type of material or content. And then we're also going to place the Benjamin Percy Rebirth Green Arrow, and then later the Hive Mind. I'm going to put that in B tier as well. So a lot of Green Arrow, the higher tier, but I think you probably know by now that I'm not necessarily the biggest Oliver Queen fan. Now we move on to the Green Lanterns, and there are a lot of Green Lantern books, by goodness. Why did Jeff Johns have to make an entire core out of them? I have no idea, but that is the era that I grew up with, so we'll stick to it. First of all, with the companion. This companion omnibus would collect Tony Bedard issues, Dave Gibbons issues that he wrote and drew that were left out of the Gleason and Tomasi omnibus. This would also collect plenty of skipped issues. I think you could even toss in Ion in here as well, Rand Thanagar War. I'm going to place this because of the compendiums. I just don't think that there is really a big... It's not really a big selling point from here. I'm going to put this in C. This is nothing against having the materials in Omnis, but just because of the way the compendiums are mapped out and how well they fit in terms of the line, I just don't think that there really is a reason to get this. Now, if the omnibuses didn't have compendiums running alongside them, I'd probably say something different. Unfortunately, that is where we are as far as all of that is concerned. So that is where I will stick it with the Green Lantern Corps Companion. They're also going to be putting the Alan Scott Omni in B tier. Same reason as the Jay Garrick tier. Same reason as the Dr. Fate tier placement too. I think Alan should get top billing. There's no reason to why he shouldn't. Guy Gardner Warrior only would want it for completionism bits, and I also think it's only important because of the completionism bits. If you want good Guy Gardner stuff, I would definitely suggest checking out Justice League International by Keith Giffen, Jim DeMatteis, and Kevin McGuire. If not, move on elsewhere. The Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps from 97 and onward, I'm going to also put this in B tier because we just don't... that particular era anyways is not particularly well collected or well mapped out. We're really nice. Again, just having the DC Finest format is also nice to see what their methodology is as far as what they're looking at in terms of the era of Green Lantern. This would also follow those Bronze Age, or that previous volume of the Bronze Age, or the Hard Traveling Heroes Omnibus, and we are eventually going to get to Englehart at some point, so that's going to go in B tier. I'm also going to place the Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps Omnibus Volume 2 by Robert Venditti. This is the second half of the Rebirth run. Also going to put that in B tier, and I think it's going to come. I hope it comes soon, man. I really, really do. And yeah, this is easily going to be one of the ones that are on the top end of my list, which is the Liam Sharp and Grant Morrison, the Green Lantern series that ran from 2018 or 2019 through 2021. The coolest thing that I have to say as far as a personal story is concerned with these, I remember just seeing these on my shelf and going, wait, Grant Morrison is writing Green Lantern now? And this was before I had sort of not known, but this was before I became, I guess, a larger presence on the internet, or understood more of the internet and how it worked with comics. And the only reason that it isn't S+ is because I really, really do not like the second season of the Green Lantern. I'll have to read it back up again at some point. I think this is the way for me to get back into it. Emerald Dawn. It's also going to go in B tier, the same reason as to the Green Lantern Corps. Same goes for the John Stewart and the Dark Stars, and also the Green Lantern Mosaic. We have a lot of Green Lantern that I think that as you guys will see, vastly uncollected, and unfortunately uncollected for reasons that you also probably know why they are uncollected. I'm just going to keep it vague at that front. But I think just for completionism's sake and also for ripping the Band-Aid off, DC needs to at least address it at some point. I don't know how, and I don't know how fan reaction would be like that, but we've seen some of the issues removed in the Amalgam Omnibus. This is going to be no different. I think they will unfortunately have to remove the Band-Aid at some point. We've also got the Kyle Rayner and the New Guardians. The only thing, you know what? This was a series written by Justin Jordan. And again, some of the weirdest things that I just remember about the book, Carol Ferris and Kyle Rayner just do not work as a ship. I'm going to put this in C because, again, completionism's sake is what, at least for my methodology, had this at the C tier. It's just not a fun run for me to read or revisit at all. But what is a fun run, even with some of its flaws, yeah, Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, got to put that into the S tier. I think that you have to get this out in omnibus format at some point. Another Band-Aid ripped off, but for good reasons this time. And to see why Gail Simone had very strong words about an incident that happened in the particular book. We also have the Sinestro by Cullen Bunn omnibus up next, and I'm going to put this in B tier. This is an easy cult classic, at least regarded, at least throughout the comic book community. I'm surprised that they haven't put it out at some point. Next on the list is the animated series omnibus. Check out Green Lantern by Jeremy Adams instead if that is something that you're looking into. And speaking of Jeremy Adams, Green Lantern, this is going to easily make up for lost time with the B tier. I thought about A tier for this, at least in terms of like the want, because this is honestly at this point for me, this is a want. You can easily get the trade paperbacks that are available for this run. We are now at a point where we are getting a different focus on a different character, but the Green Lantern of it all, the Hal Jordan stuff, the Sinestro stuff, Red Lantern stuff, it is some of the most interesting Green Lantern bits that I've read in recent memory, and there's also no surprise that he takes a lot from the Jeff Johns playbook of it all as a sort of Adams' mentor. We also have the Green Lantern Dawn of DC omnibus, or after that I should say. We have the New 52 companion, so this would include Larfleeze and Edge of Oblivion, which are not immediately collected amongst themselves. I like that Larfleeze series, but this is going to go in D for me because the fit is just too weird. Again, I'd rather have it split up instead of it all being there. And the same also goes for N.K. Jemisin and Jeffrey Thorne. Larger deluxe collection for me. Let's not get into the messiness of it with placing Far Sector and also the Jeffrey Thorne, and I think it was Dexter Soy in that book. I could be, again, my brain is mush, but I am more than happy with keeping my Far Sector Deluxe, and I think I am going to keep it that way. We've also got the Green Lantern Rebirth. Green Lanterns Rebirth, I should say. This is plural. This is the Jessica Cruz, Simone Baz, good cop, bad cop. I'm putting this in A tier. The Tim Seeley, Sam Humphries, especially the Sam Humphrey bits, some of my favorite character-focused comics in the era, and also one of my favorite Sam Humphries comics just in general. If you want really good characterization, if you want compelling stuff, again, I would definitely check out that book. We're also going to look at Grifter and Voodoo by Nathan Edmondson, who also wrote a Black Widow run. Voodoo, Ron Mars, very weird first issue, and also when it shifts to Joshua Williamson, the book becomes something completely different. I'm going to put this in D. I didn't really like this material, and I have no interest in collecting this in omnibus format. We also got Hanna-Barbera. This is a lot of Mark Russell. Flintstones, Snagglepuss. I'm going to put this in B tier because I do like that material, but I also prefer having material splits, so the formal fit hurts even if I do want an omnibus of that. We also have the Harley Quinn books. There's not too many of them. The first one on my list is by Stephanie Phillips and Teenie Howard. This is also going to go into B tier. I really like the Stephanie Phillips bits. I could do more or less with Teenie Howard. I think Teenie Howard is a fantastic person. I just do not care for her Harley Quinn, unfortunately. But check her out on Jeopardy. That was actually really fun. We also have the Sam Humphries and Frank Thierry portion of this, which follows immediately after Palmiotti Connor. I'm going to put this in the C tier. I like it. I guess more so that the Humphreys bits I quite enjoyed, including Harley Quinn going on Apocalypse. Frank Thierry, I just unfortunately could not care less about. And then we have the early bits of Harley Quinn. This is the early years with Dini, Kessel, and Dodson. I'm happy with the DC Finest format, and I acknowledge the historical aspect of it. The want for this was low, even if it does make sense as an omnibus. We also have Haunted Tank. So these are stories from GI Combat. Another one that's C tier because, again, I'd rather have it in an anthology format than it being by itself. We also have Hawk and Dove, the post-crisis omnibus, only for Titans completionism's sake. If this was not Titans-related material, this would be here, but because it is Titans-related material, it's going to be in C. I don't really care for this stuff. I find Hawk and Dove boring, but people like them, and I think that's all that matters, right? You also got the Hawkman and Hawk Res. We get to the Hawk lore of it all by Simonson, Justin Gray, and Jimmy Palmiotti. This is going to go into A tier easily. I wish that this was a little bit higher, but it's also something that, comparatively to the other Hawk people omnibuses, this is just not something that I want at the top, but it is definitely one book that I do want. Now, one book that I do want from this entire list, you guys will probably already know. Yeah, this is Hawkman and Hawkman by Ostrander and Esther Lobes in the mid-90s. If you have not read this material, this is something that you guys absolutely need to check out at some point in your guys' lives. It's something that I think gets overshadowed and overlooked because of the 2004 run, but I also quite like it, and that's why I think it's important. The same also goes, I'm going to put this in S tier. This is the Hawkman by Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch run that was in the 2018 sort of portion of it all before with Brian Hitch. Brian Hitch also worked on Legion of Superheroes issues a little bit after this Hawkman run was finished. You want to talk about fixing a character that got messed up severely after Savage Hawkman, this is the way to do it. And I think that just because of that, we do definitely need a series for Hawkman, at least in that. I'm just really surprised that some of these Omnis haven't been printed out. We got the Tony Isabella run. This is going to end up being in the B tier, at least for, again, the Tony Isabella run. Not that I don't want it as much as these two, but it's also something that is a little bit lower on my priority list. The next also goes for the Hawkman Golden Age Omni, DC Finest format instead, so this ends up being lower than the Tony Isabella run. We also have the Silver Age Omnibus, and this is ending up in D tier, not because of its lack of importance. I had this one on my want scale because I already have it in Finest, and I think having it and keeping it in Finest is going to be a plus as well. We've also got Hawk World, also S tier. I think the whole point of the S plus or the Dream Books tier or the S tier, at least to the elevation and concerns of it all, is if it's something that I look at a creator and I go, I do not have this, please make this a reality. Again, if you guys have not checked out the Hawk World by John Ostrander, Tim Truman run, please do check it out. I think it definitely is important to the character's lore. Now, something that is unfortunately important to the character's lore, but something that I also find absolute hot garbage, you can check out Savage Hawkman. I'm going to keep that in New 52 and not go over it more. Helix, the 90s cyberpunk comics. This would include Cyberella, Vermilion, and Bloody Mary. I'm going to also put this in D tier because I literally have no interest, unfortunately, in those books. We're going to move on to Hellblazer. There is quite a decent bit of Hellblazer. The first book, immediate S plus tier, is the Simon Spurrier, Aaron Campbell run. This was my first Hellblazer book, and I remember reading this just being floored, honestly. Not Hellblazer book in terms of like, oh, this was when I first... This wasn't when I first followed in the singles. Maybe I should be a little bit more clear on that front, because this was at a time in my life where I actually decided to vote with my wallet instead of just accepting whatever came by my way. I was told by people that the New 52 run was not a great jumping on point. I should read something else instead. And when I heard, oh, they're doing a brand new Hellblazer book in the Sandman universe of things, I decided, you know what, let me go ahead and check it out. Was not disappointed. Also made Cy Spurrier one of my favorite writers and creators in the industry. And unfortunately, on that flip-flop, I'm going to be putting the Rebirth run of Hellblazer in the D tier. It's nothing against the folks, and I probably also need to realize I need to zoom out at all of this. This is going to end up in D tier because I just don't think I think it was John I think it was Simon Oliver. Simon Oliver. I was going to say John Oliver because of the late night show, but Simon Oliver, I don't know what their experience is outside of comics, but it was just something that I never found any grips with. I just found the voice kind of off and the stories weren't enough for me to continue moving on. New 52, I kind of liked it more, but I also realized that it's not something that I want to, I think, go back. This was co-written by Tynion and Doyle. I think you had Riley Rossmo in there from what I remember reading. Cool art, cool covers, just not my thing, unfortunately, and that's where I'm going to keep it at. And also was during a period where John was now in the DC universe proper because of Flashpoints, and I know that some people have myths with that. I also felt weird reading, his adventures in, say, the Justice League Dark, and not for me. And then I think I'm gonna keep it that way. I'm going to put the Ellis and Azzarello book in A, just, again, for more of the mouth. I've never read it, but it's also something that I do want to get to at some point. I'm going to put the Mike Carey run in S tier, just because this is just more so in the fact that I trust Carey more than the other writers, and I also like Carey a lot more than the other writers, so I'm going to put that in S tier. I'm going to put the Azzarello, or sorry, not the Azzarello, but the Andy Diggle and Peter Milligan portion. This would be what constitutes from 2006 to 2009. Probably should have said the years, but this would be volume 7 of the Hellblazer run. I'm going to put that in A tier. Again, word of mouth. And then one book that I've gotten mixed feelings and emotions on, at least again, from word of mouth. I've never read it before. From what I have talked to with Sai, because I had a chance to talk with Sai, I'm going to put the Milligan and etc. run from 2009 to 13 in the C tier. All right, we got Our Man, I, Tom Pyre. This is another underrated and under-talked about book. I'm going to put that in B tier, and I really hope that we do get some JSA. This ends up being in a JSA type Omni or JSA type DC Finest at some point. We've also got the House of Mystery. Every single one of these 5 Omnis from Bronze Age, Golden Age, Silver Age, and the Vertigo years are those 4 here, and then House of Secrets. These are all going to go in the C tier for me, just particularly because I want people to get them, but I also don't think that, again, I'm looking at the DC Finest anthologies, and I really do think that they're better there than they would be elsewhere. So, man, that rhymes. I just realized. We also got The Human Target by Peter Milligan. This is a series that I actually have heard decent things about, and it's also one of those things where Peter Milligan, for me, he's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes he does well, sometimes he doesn't, but that is what we do have for Pete Milligan. Next on the list is the Bronze Age omnibus of Human Target. This is going to go into C tier, just much less interested in this particular character, which is why I think Tom King was given the green light to go ahead and do. We also got 2 Huntress Omnis that I'm going to put in the C tier. Nothing against Huntress. I would like to see this in a DC Finest. I really like Helena Wayne as a character. I also like Helena Bertinelli as a character. I don't think that I would read an omnibus of either of them. That being said, if you have not read Greg Rucka's Cry for Blood, which is one of the best stories I think I've ever read, please do check it out. I freaking love that book. I will also say for I, Vampire, this is the J.M. DeMatteis series from 1980 onwards. I'm going to put that in B tier, again, just for the namesake of it without having read anything else. The I, Vampire New 52 series, read this digitally and did not really care for it. I'm going to put that in D tier. Next, we got the Impact Comics Complete Stories with The Fly, Bloodhood, and the Comet. D tier for me. Another one of these books that I have been asking DC for, and if you have watched my videos, yes, you know exactly where this is. Impulse by Mark Waid and Humberto Ramos. This is going to end up in S+ for me. I really love this series, and I also really love those 2 creators, so I really hope that we get it at some point. Inferior 5, this is going to end up in the C tier for me. The only Inferior 5 that I've read was the Keith Giffen book that got published a little bit, almost a decade ago. Shout out to one of my friends for getting me that trade paperback. Not bad, but it's also something that I'm just not too typically particularly interested in. Infinity Inc. is also going to end up in the same tier as All-Star Squadron for the exact same reasons as All-Star Squadron. Next, we got the Johnny Quest, the Comico years. Another one of these things where I don't mind it, but I also am just too not particularly interested. We've also got the Joker by Matt Rosenberg and the Modern Age Joker Omnibus. Nothing against these two creators. I just don't think that I'm interested enough to have or own an omnibus of any Joker material that is specifically on the Joker. Next on the list, we have Jonah Hex by Jimmy Palmiotti, Justin Gray, and the Classic Omnibus. The Jonah Hex Omnibus is going to end up in the S tier, and the regular Jonah Hex Omnibus is going to end up in the A tier. Jonah Hex, just particularly for you guys, and I think that it is smart to put out an omnibus of Jonah Hex, but also we need the Jonah Hex by Palmiotti and Gray series omnibus at some point. Like, I don't know what the holdup is on that, but it definitely is a top priority for me. We got JSA Classified. It would be nice to have all of these series remastered. We've only had some of it collected in the Jeff Johns JSA omnibuses, and also it makes sense to put those in the compendiums. I'm going to put this in the B tier, just particularly because I don't know if I'm completely sold. Again, just like the Action Comics weeklies, it's not something that I need to have A, B, or for issues 1, 2, 3, etc. It's something that I would prefer to have elsewhere, but it's still enough for me. So they say, you know what, it would make sense to have it, and it's a nice gap filler. The same also goes for the 4th Omnibus of Justice Society of America, which would collect the Jerry Ordway and James Robinson series right after Johns and Alex Ross leaves. I think people tend to forget that Alex Ross co-wrote a whole bunch of that 2007 run. So after they leave, I would not mind any collection of that sort and the following. We've also got the All-Star Comics, the Golden Age Omnibus, which is going to end up in the B tier. Again, just for historical purposes, and I actually would like to see all of that fully laid out and remastered as a part of good comic book history. We've also got Crisis on Multiple Earths is going to end up in the D tier. Again, there's some things I just prefer in DC Finest format, and for this particular thing, for the Earth 2 team-ups and whatnot, it's not something that's high on my priority list, and I wish that I would place it higher, but I think I had like 1 or 2 on the want score, so this is going to go in the D tier. You got the Golden Age All-Stars, which are the solo adventures of characters like Starman and Wildcat. This is going to end up in the B tier, and the same reason to the All-Star Comics. Would just be nice to get all of that remastered. The JSA 1999 Companion, and you are looking at, if this is the only way that we can get Dr. Midnight 1999 in full, like this is where you get the Wagner stuff, right? The Wagner and John K. Snyder III. This is how you get it. I'm going to put this in B tier. You got the Last Days of the Justice Society of Earth 2, a lot of Roy Thomas stuff. I'm going to put this in the A tier. I don't know if it makes complete sense to put this again a tier higher, but again, having all that with a lot of gap fillers missing, I think it would be nice to have. And then Jeff Johns' new Golden Age is going to go in the B tier, only because this omnibus is weird. Because you're collecting the 12-issue series on top of the new Golden Age one-shot, and then Stargirl: The Lost Children, Alan Scott Green Lantern, Jay Garrick Flash, and Wesley Dodd Sandman. That is a very weird amalgamation of a whole lot of different tones. This book got heavily delayed. I just remember every single time I was like, oh, like this issue got delayed. But it is what it is. We got the JSA Young All-Stars. This kind of reminds me of Golden Age Trinity for some reason. I'm going to put this in B. Same reason as the JSA Prelude as well. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Justice League. We're going to kick it off with the Justice League, not Justice League Unlimited, Justice League cartoon comics from 1997 onwards. I'm going to put this in D. Again, I'll watch the show, just not really too interested in the comics. I'm sorry, guys. Next on the list, we got JLI Omnibus, Volume 4. I'm going to put this in C tier. I'm not going to go ahead and further explain why. We got Justice League Odyssey by Williamson and Abnett. I've told people this. This is not Justice League Odyssey. This is Titans by Dan Abnett continued in a marketed Justice League book. This is going to be an A. I really want this at some point, just particularly because it's the only omnibus of the 3 Justice League runs that came out in the New Justice League line, or the New Justice line after Dark Knight's Metal, that hasn't been collected in omnibus format. So we need to get that out at some point. We also got Steve Orlando's Justice League Rebirth. Another one where I prefer this in deluxe. I don't know if I would want an omni of it. Next is the Justice League of America, Volume 1 by Ed Benes, Brad Meltzer, and Dwayne McDuffie. Just for completionism's sake, I actually do want this in oversized. I also think it'd be nice to have Ed Benes art in oversized. Same with Joe Benitez and a couple of other art. Oh, Dale Eaglesham too on the crossover. I think that would be nice to have in omnibus format. So a lot of these are going to end up in C. Justice League Bronze Age Volume 5. That's going to end up in the C tier. Justice League Task Force also going to end up in the C tier. Justice League United International in America. This is the New 52 Omni. So you have this starting off with a kickoff with Jeff Johns and David Finch on Justice League of America right before we get into the Trinity War. And then you're going to see creators like, oh, this is early Jeff, well, not early Jeff Lemire, but it's early Matt Kint. I think I'm going to put this in C tier. I'm going to be very, very happy with that as well. Next on the list is the, oh my goodness, man, Justice League Unlimited. This hurts because I said I wasn't too interested in the regular comic, and I'm going to probably be flamed for that. Justice League Unlimited, that is going to end up in the C tier for me. Extreme Justice, also going to end up in the C tier. A lot of C tiers here. Again, a lot of gap filler here, but it's also material that I'm not too disinterested in, to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't need that. We got Generation Lost by Keith Giffen, rest in peace, and Judd Winnick, and could include Cry for Justice as well. I was so close to putting it into C because it might include Cry for Justice. I'm actually going to put it into C because I feel like that's how I exactly feel about that series. You've also got the Road to Infinite Crisis, which would contain the Byrne and Claremont reunion. Also got Jeff Johns, Kurt Busiek, Chuck Austin. Oh man, there's a lot of schmuck in here. That's also going to go into the C tier. Next, we have the Joe Kelly Omni. And that is easily going to go into my S tier. I've talked very highly about the Joe Kelly Omni, and particularly the reason why is if Grant Morrison's are, oh, these are the high concept stories that you want, and if Wade's is, these are fantastic character studies, I think Joe Kelly does the best of both worlds. We're also going to be getting Doug Mankey art, so I hope that they get that out soon as possible. To see Joe Kelly now back on Amazing Spider-Man, so you got some 2-2s there as well. We've also got the JLA Classified. So we got JSA and you got JLA this time. JLA Classified is where you get stories like Cold Steel. You even get a Grant Morrison and then McGinnis story in there too. So a lot of tracking here. So I think I'm going to put this in C because there's not too much. But again, it just goes... I keep bringing it back to the anthologies and the random stories. I'd rather have those in tinier formats than the entirety of it all under one banner. Next on the list are the Rebirth omnibuses, so both Hitch and Priest, along with the Venditti, Williamson, Bendis runs. They're going to go into the D tier for me. I don't find these really engaging at all as far as material is concerned. The thing that sucks is that Brian Hitch has talked publicly about how much he regrets writing those books. I really feel for him, but at the same time, I just have to look at what I'm looking at, and that, I think, was one of the biggest misfires of Rebirth, was that particular Rebirth Justice League run. Next, we got Kamandi following the Kirby Omni. This is going to go in the D tier. I'm only interested in reading the Kirby bits. Got Kid Eternity. I'm going to put this in C tier. There's some parts of it that I'm intrigued by, but it's also not enough for me to continue on. Another C tier. This is the Kingdom Come Omnibus. I thought about putting this in B tier, but it's just a mismatch of clashing looks. If you have the original vision from Alex Ross with Mark Waid supplementing dialogue, if you look at the Mark Waid only bits with the Kingdom, the Alex Ross and Jeff Johns storyline with Magog in the 3/4 of that JSA run, and then Mark Waid and Dan Moore returning in Batman Superman World's Finest. I can see it. It's just a lot of different tones for the exact same universe. I thought about putting it in B, but then I realized I just want those things separately. Cobra. I don't mind Cobra, but I'm going to put that in D. I'd rather read that in something else completely. We got Legion and Rebels. Again, did I vote for Legion? But I should mention, if you have been through part of this video or you just decided to tune in, random part. S plus are books that I definitely voted for in my top 10. S, they're books that I want, but not books that I voted in, or possibly might have been in my top 10. So I'm going to put that in the S tier. We should have had that Legion book a very long time ago. We're going to be getting a lot of Legion books soon. Legends of the DC Universe, which was an anthology series. Some of these I've seen sparsely collected. I'm going to put that in B tier. I feel a little bit less strongly about that, say, versus JSA or JLA classified, but it's also something that I don't mind having singularly or in other people's collections as well. Next on the list, we got the Bronze Age Legion of Superheroes Omnibus. So the reason why this is in B and this is not higher is because I already have some of it in DC Finest format. Another one that's also going to end up in B is the Jerry Conway years, ending up in B format too. So I wish those were a little bit higher. S tier, Paul Levitz. This is the Great Darkness Saga. This is another one where I'm like, why on earth have you not been printed? You probably also guess which one ended up in S+. And that is the Paul Levitz and I for an I Omnibus Volume 2. And then also in S is going to be Volume 3, which is the greatest hero of them all. The reason why I have one in S+ and the other two in S, this is all Great Darkness Saga has already, as you guys probably know, been reprinted quite an amount of times. This is an era of Legion that is desperately in need for omnibus format, and it's also one where, I don't know, man. Paul Levitz, at least from what I've been told by Mark Waid, says he loves Legion. No, what Mark Waid said was nobody loves Legion more than me. But Levitz does love Legion the same as Waid, so I guess that counts somewhat. We'll let them know. We'll let you guys figure that out. We got the Legionnaires, the New Earth reboot. So this is after the 5 years later, or the 0 hour format. Another S tier. You're gonna see a very, very similar trend with all of this. And a lot of this is also piqued by my curiosity in the Legion too, because I've only known a couple of Legion iterations, and I feel like I'm being left out if I don't know a particular version of a character like Dream Girl, or Brainy 5, or Saturn Girl, or Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy, and Mon-El, the list goes on. So a lot of these are in the S tier just because I want to further my knowledge in the subject, so I don't look stupid if I'm on a stream or talking to my own show. A lot of this is edification for me. The same also goes for the Dan Abnett Legion, S tier. I don't know why, again, this hasn't been printed, but that is going in the S tier. We've also got the Return of the Legion, and while I know that this isn't a particularly hailed era as the others, we're going to kick this off, I think, with Legion of Three Worlds from the Final Crisis tie-in. I still want to embellish myself into that, so that's going to go in S tier. New 52. This is going to go in B tier again just because of word of mouth, and obviously not everything lasts forever, but I hope that we get to that at some point. Brian Michael Bendis' Legion of Superheroes. This one hurt. I know that some people are probably going to put this in D tier. There's still a lot of merit. I think with this era of Legion, this was also the Legion that I first started reading, picking up single issues in. So call me nostalgic or whatever, as weird as it is to say, that was my introduction to the Legion in singles, and that's what's preventing it from being in D tier. Now, what is going to go in D tier, though, is the Legion of Superheroes cartoon tie-in. I do not care for that particular book. We've got Valor, the 1992 series. This is also going to go in A tier. Not a particular, struggle for me, but enough of Legion to consider moving on. Lex Luthor, classic. Same as all of the Batman villains. Lobo. Yeah, this is going to go in A tier. I don't know where else I would put this, but we had this in Compendium. The Big Fraggin' Compendium is what they labeled it as, so keep it there. Looney Tunes. I'd rather watch them on television blowing people up or blowing other cartoon characters up instead of reading the comics, but that is just, again, a me thing. The Losers. I actually quite liked this part in the DC War DC Finest. But I'll keep that in C. Next on the list is the Mad Magazine. Keep this in magazine format. I don't know if I particularly want this in Omni. I'm going to keep this in the D tier. Next on the list is, Madame Xanadu. A lot of Amy Reeder. For that reason, I'm going to put this in B tier. I think that's fair enough to say. We got Major Bummer next, a.k.a. Captain Slackass. I'm going to put this in D. I don't think I care enough of a Major Bummer to continue reading on. We got Manhunter by John Ostrander, Kim Yale, and Stephen Grant. This is going to be the C tier book for me, but what will end up being an A tier is the... I thought this was going to be higher too when I put in the formula. This is the Kate Spencer run by Mark Andreyko. Mark Andreyko, I got a chance to read his comics first in the Rebirth run for Supergirl, just during the New 50 or the Year of the Villain tie-ins. I really enjoyed that Supergirl run. I went and somebody told me that he had written Manhunter back long ago, and this is in particular respect to the Leviathan event event Leviathan, I should say, maybe to be a little bit more politically correct, as Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev were doing. Man, Manhunter by Kate Spencer, or Manhunter Kate Spencer by Mark Andreyko is a really, really good run, and I really wish it got more attention. I'm just surprised again that it ended up in the A tier for me and not higher, at least according to what I calculated. Now, one thing that will end up in S tier, though, or a tier higher than that, we got to get the Chokas in omnibus form. I was given an issue number 24, by a friend of mine at my comic shop. Well, now a friend of my comic shop, used to be my manager at my comic shop, who held up that issue and said, "Who is this for?" I was like, "Oh, I need it." I read it, and I told myself, yeah, we need a bigger collection of this. So I went digitally, or the entire run. We need that at some point. Also looking at the 2007 Lieberman, Williams, and Orlando. This is, again, a weird mismatch of a whole lot of different stories. I'm going to put this in C tier. Same for the Martian Manhunter Silver Age. Martian Manhunter, and again, if anybody doesn't know this, Martian Manhunter, John Jones, he's my favorite Justice Leaguer. I've always liked this calm spirit, elderly spirit. I just don't know if I have enough in me to look at it from, this is himself. The only person who has been able to pitch that in for me has been John Ostrander. Amazing Man. This is 12 issues. This should not be an omni. This should probably be a deluxe. We've also got Men of War, the complete omnibus, separate from All American, at least the mapping of what we're given. Put this in C. Metalman. I don't like that Dan Didio liked the Metalman so much. I'm going to put that in D tier. Very weird, odd choice. Metamorph of the Silver Age Omnibus. I'm going to put this in C tier because I already own a plenty amount of this in DC Finest. Next on the list is the Milestone Returns. We've got the compendiums, but what did it for me was saying this is such an important part of comic book history that I think we do need to preserve it in a larger format at some point. And the same goes for the original. So I'm putting the original and the 2021 series all in the same A-list tier category. Now, what's going to end up in a much higher or a higher tier than that? And this did not, unfortunately, end up in my top 10. Why has Static not come out in Omnibus yet? You want to easily talk about the most popular and I think the most integral character to the Milestone universe. Somebody that you could connect to in Virgil Hawkins, great high school drama, and on top of that, some of the coldest lines that you will ever read in a comic book. That is going to be in the Milestone Static, the original Years Omni. We got Mr. Miracle, the Bronze Age Omnibus. I'd rather read Fourth World. This is going to go up in D. Same here for the Mr. Miracle Post-Crisis Omni. End up in D. Mr. Terrific making his cut in from the Spectre and Pust. This is going to go in C. This is more so, there's just not enough sustaining for me solo-wise, and I'd rather read solo material, a trade paperback, versus a larger omnibus format. The same goes for the more fun comics pre-Golden Age. This is more so for historical restoration purposes than anything. I don't know if I have any particular interest in reading those stories, but I do think that is important for preservation and also restoration too. Mortal Kombat. My friend is going to kill me for this. This is going to be in D. He loves Mortal Kombat. I just don't know if I care more than using Sub-Zero and slicing up people in the video game than reading him doing that in the comics. We've also got My Greatest Adventure, pre-Doom Patrol stories. The only reason I care about this is the Doom Patrol, so I'm going to put that in D. I'm going to do Mystery of Space, non-hero stories. We've seen some of this in the science fiction. Again, preservation is there, and that's really the only reason why it's in C. Nathaniel Dusk, including Night Force, perhaps. Yeah, this is going to end up in D. I don't think I care enough about those stories enough to say so otherwise. Gene Luen Yang's New Superman. Easy S+ tier. One of my favorite modern runs of Superman, and also the run that made me a really, really big fan of his writing, got me to read American Born Chinese, obviously much later with Superman Smashes the Klan with him and Gurihiru. Fantastic pieces of literature if you have not read those yet at some point. This is also going to be the Marv Wolfman parts of Night Force. I am only interested in this. Again, this looks like horror in the same way that Tomb of Dracula was, but I'd rather read Tomb of Dracula than that. And the only reason I'm putting this in C is because of Marv Wolfman. We've got the Nightwing by Chuck Dixon Omnibus. This is going to end up in B tier. I thought it would go a little bit higher, but because we already have the compendiums that hit the score a decent bit. So you've got that to contend with. And we have a couple of other Nightwing volumes too. Nightwing by Devin Grayson. I'm going to keep that in C for preservation and also for completionism's sake. I'm not going to touch on it much otherwise than that. The next one is the 1 year later and post-Nightwing series by Bruce Jones, Marv Wolfman, and later Peter J. Tomasi. This is the volume right before Grant Morrison Batman Omnibus Volume 2. It's going to go in C tier as well, just because, again, the mismatch of stories just feels so weird. I'm going to put the second volume of Rebirth Nightwing in D tier and not explain further. OMAC by Kirby, Rucka, Byrne, and Jones. I get why they mapped it this way, but this is a horrific nightmare. I'm going to put that in D because the fit is absolute. You want to talk about mismatching of ideas. That's a complete WTF right there. No shade to Peter, by the way. If you would have to do it, you have to do it that way, but you can do better as far as collections are concerned and in thinking that. Omega Men, the classic Omni. Same reason to Mr. Miracle. You know, I'm going to put this in D tier. I don't think I'm at... You know what? Actually, no, this is going to be in C tier. I had this in C tier. I thought about switching it up real quick, but I'm going to keep that in C tier just because I am partly interested in material like that. Our Army at War, that would omit Sergeant Rock. No, thank you. Next, we have the Outsiders by Judd Winnick series. This is going to go in S tier because I quite enjoy that run. I really like Jenny. I really like Dick. And pause, I guess. Anyways, we've got the Outsiders by Mike Barr. This would follow the original Batman and the Outsiders run. No Batman, just G-Force. This is going to go into the B tier. Next on the list, we have the Dixon, Tomasi, and Didio Batman and the Outsiders. It's a very weird mismatch. Again, very weird mismatch of tones and whatnot. I'm going to put this in C tier just because the fit is very, very awkward for the mapping. We've got the Batman and the Outsiders Classic. This is going to go into A tier. If you have not had a chance to read Mike W. Barr's Batman and the Outsiders or any of Detective Comics by Mike W. Barr, I would definitely suggest doing so. We also have the Brian Edward Hill Batman and the Outsiders, and I only read this because of two things. Dexter Soy, I really like his art, and also Cassandra Cain being on the team. I had fun with it, but it's not my favorite. I'm going to put this in the C tier, but I would buy it for the completionism sake of it. We've also got the Peacemaker Complete Omnibus, so this would collect everything up from the Charlton year. Or oh man, that's going to be a very big and awkward collection. You have everything from Quality, getting all of my things mixed up, all the way up to Peacemaker Tries Hard. I'm going to put this in D. I think Peacemaker is one of the worst characters that I've ever read in a comic book. If you like G.I. Joe or that kind of thing, it might be something completely different for you, but that's also something that I just am not interested in. Pinky and the Brain. I actually watched this with a friend of mine. Don't care for the comics, unfortunately. The same also goes for the Piranha Press, the complete stories. Again, stuff that outside it probably would be maybe a little bit more interested in, but I just do not have any. I just don't have any force to get myself to read any of that series. Plastic Man, just for preservation purposes, and I think it would look great on paper. I'm going to put that in B. It's good humor, even if it's a little bit outdated on the gender front. I would still put that in B tier for preservation's sake. And for maybe less so, I'm going to put the other Plastic Man omnibuses in C tiers. So that's how I feel about our good old friend Eel O'Brien. Next, we got the Plop magazine. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have any inclination to read this book, so that's going to go in D tier. One thing that's going to go in A tier, and the only reason that this isn't higher is because we literally have had a whole bunch of standard hardcovers and trade paperbacks covering it all. The Poison Ivy by G. Willow Wilson Omnibus. I freaking love those Jenny Frison cover, by the way. I have all of them, and I am just going to say, like, her work on that series, lovely, lovely stuff. And the same goes for the stories. And I could not believe that we are now full-fledged about to start an event that has the series in the middle thick of it. That being said, I have no inclination or want to get a Poison Ivy pre-Crisis omnibus at all. So the same reason as all the other Batman villains. Power Company by Kurt Busiek, another cult classic. This is going to go in the A tier right alongside a whole bunch of other books. Next on the list, we have the Power Girl, Dawn of DC Omnibus. Wait, was that actually the cover? God damn. That's the cover I chose. She is going to go into the C tier. I have this run in singles, but it's also not something that I immediately wish to go out of my way to read again. Now, one thing that I have read in full, and only because of the two absolute issues that have come out so far, and also borrowing volume 3 from the library, Promethea by Alan Moore. This would be higher if those books didn't exist, but if they didn't, this would easily be in the S tier for me. Question Renee Montoya. Another thing where I would prefer this in a different format, so the DC Finest format, I'm going to put her in the C tier. No shit against Renee Montoya, but I think that would work better as a DC Finest. Rebels by Tony Bedard. This is a 2007 series, not to be confused with the 90s series. I'm going to put this in B just because I find the premise interesting, but it's also something I have no recollection of it, and I don't remember if I ever read it or not. We've got Ragman, the complete collection. Again, another one of these D tiers. I just prefer something else. Please give me something else. Ray by Christopher Priest and Joe Quesada is going to end up in the S tier. I think this is one of the instances where I look at a cult classic and I go, "Is I recommended this by an acquaintance of mine, colleague of mine, so many years ago." And the only reason that I had read it besides that was because Christopher Priest had written Destro, and I was like, "Oh, what else has he written?" Ray is going to be in that top spot for me, or one of the top spots anyways. We got Red Hood and the Outlaws and New 52 Rebirth, which will include Red Hood and Arsenal. I'm going to put this in the C tier. I know that some people will want it, and that's why it's not entirely in the D list here. There's also some stuff in there that I happen to like more than the first half. I just don't know if I'm the intended audience for it. Now, one thing I am definitely the intended audience for, I'm going to put the Red Hood and the Outlaw Rebirth. This is going to be the first volume. I'll put this in A tier. I actually had a lot of fun with the Bizarro and Artemis of it all, and I think those two characters fit Jason more as like a trio of characters to bounce off of each other instead of the differences between him, Starfire, and Arsenal or Corey and Roy in New 52. Red Tornado and Primal Force is a post-Zero Hour concept. Don't care. I'm going to put this in D tier. Next on the list, we got the Resurrection Man. It's going to go into A tier. The only two reasons. We had a New 52 run of this, and this would also collect some of that. We've seen DC jump the bits to collections like these with the Shade the Changing Man omnibuses, and also with Secret 6, where you see, oh, wait, they actually skipped some years just to collect that particular creator's books. But also because Ram V did a fantastic job with Resurrection Man Black Label series, and I really want to get into more Resurrection Man, so that's going to go in A tier. So that one, it's a big one for me. Next on the list is Rex the Wonder Dog. Toth. Alex Toth took over some of this book. I am going to put that, for at least for the reason, in C tier. Richard Dragon. Don't care. Same reason as to... I do not need DC's version of Iron Fist in an omnibus format. That's going to be in the D tier for me. Also in the D tier is Rip Hunter, Time Master. I'll read a Booster Gold book. I am not going to read a Rip Hunter book. You can bet your butt on that. We have the Robin, Damian Wayne, son of Batman. This is going to go in B tier. It's actually one of my favorite runs. I think underrated runs of the New 52 and DCYOU era. The only reason this is not higher is because we had a deluxe edition of this that already, for me, is more than enough for the series. Actually, it's on my shelf there somewhere, but anyways, that's besides the point. Robin, the Golden Age Omni. Sorry, Dick. You're going to be in the D tier for this one. Now, the Tim Drake Omni is going to go into A. The reason why I have Robin in such a low tier, DC Finest, and also I'll just read Batman material with a minute, man. It's not, I don't think it's going to be too difficult on that front. Red Robin. This was a book that I tried to convince DC to put into omnibus format. They said no for now. I hope that they say yes someday. That's easy S tier, or S plus tier, I should say. And this is also a run where if you want to see Tim Drake becoming the burger that we all know that he can be, that is definitely one to pick up. Rose and Thorn. I'd rather read a Birds of Prey Omni, so this is going to go into D tier. Next on the list, we have the Samurai Jack Omnibus, one of the greatest cartoons ever. I'm going to put that in C tier. Again, I said exceptions with the cartoon rule. I feel like that's one of them. Same reason as to the Justice League Unlimited Omnibus. We got Sandman Mystery Theater. This is going to go into A tier, and the reason that this wasn't higher, at least on my methodology sheet, was because the score did not, or reflected the fact that we had 2 compendiums of this release, but I would love to have that in omnibus someday. You're going to move on to the Sandman books, and unfortunately for me, I just have less of a fascination with these because I've actually never read the original Neil Gaiman Sandman. I'm going to put Black Orchid, Books of Magic, and Dead Boy Detectives into the C tier. I already have Dead Boy Detectives in Nightmare Country in trade paper, or what is it? I have this in standard size hardcover. And the only reason that I picked those up was because our comic shop had a sale on those, and I wanted to check them out. And I was like, oh, it's Tynan. I'll check it out. Books of Magic and Black Orchid, at this point, I just have no interest, unfortunately, in reading those books. House of Whispers by Hopkinson and Dan Waters is going to end up in the B tier for me because I like those 2 creators. I also read Lucifer by Dan Waters only because I was interviewing him for his... He was doing a Doctor Who book, and he was also going to be on Nightwing, and I asked him a whole bunch of questions, and I talked to him about Lucifer in that as well. Holly Black is also going to end up in the same book. Just as much as I'm interested in the Dan Waters of it all, I'm also interested in reading Holly Black's version of it before Waters got on 2018. The Dreaming by Cy Spurrier and G. Willow Wilson, 2 strong creators, also going to end up in the B tier. And again, as I gushed out for Cy Spurrier on Hellblazer, I feel the same way sort of for his Dreaming. Now, the original Dreaming, no at least interest in it right now. The same goes for the Vertigo years for the Dream, or the companion, which would have Sandman Presents. I think that is indeed the comic book pictured there. Less of it now, I think, more so than others. We've also got the Wesley Dodds, the Sandman Golden Age Omni, in the same way that I put Alan Scott and a whole bunch of other Golden Age heroes. I'm going to put this in the B tier as well. Dr. Fate, he's going to end up Humpty Dumpty comfortably in that B tier. Maybe not comfortably if I am saying that. We got Scallop Hunter, aka the Native American / White Avenger. I am going to put this in C tier. I would rather have it in a DC Finest, but I do find some bits of the character compelling. We got a lot of Scooby-Doo. Where are you? We got Batman and the Scooby-Doo Mysteries and Team Up. I actually would prefer that kids read these in digest instead of having an omnibus of it. Although we do have a Scooby-Doo omnibus now, so perhaps my words on that are maybe they're a little bit on deaf ears or dead ears, or whatever the phrasing is. We've also got Where Are You? The Scooby-Doo original years. We've got Gold Key Charlton Marvel. You got that in C tier. We're also going to put the Where Are You in C tier as well. I'm also going to say the same for the DC years of Scooby-Doo. They're all going to go in C tier because, again, preservation, and we already have so much of the DC Comics ones available readily and throughout. We've also got Scribbly and the Red Tornado by Sheldon Mayer, the Golden Age Omni. I didn't realize that this was Ma Hunkel up until way later. Just because it's Ma Hunkel, put Mama there at B. I think that makes complete sense for her character. We got Sea Devils. We got which is essentially Sea of the Challengers Unknown. I'd rather read Challengers of the Unknown, so I'm going to put that in D tier. Secret Origins. I'm going to put this in C. I'd rather see this, again, like the Action Comics Weekly. Give me those in other characters' omnibuses. The same also goes for Secret Society of Supervillains and Secrets of the Sinister House omnibuses. I'm going to put that in C. Modern Era for Sergeant Rock. I'm going to put that in C tier. The Silver Age, though, I have not gotten a chance to do a video on this yet, and I'll put that out at some point on the channel I work for, Near Mint, of course. I'm going to put that in B tier for preservation. I also think that having Joe Kubert in oversize is a must. I'm going to put that in B tier. Next on the list, we got Shadow Pack by Willingham and Sturges, which is Enchantress in DC versus the Spectre. I'll take my leave on that. Shazam by Jeff Johns, the first Shazam book that I ever read. I remember reading this as a kid. I'm going to put that in B tier. It hurts because I'm not, like, looking back, I'm not really too big of a fan of the New 52 run. I am a little bit more apologetic for the Rebirth and Post, but this is also something where I'm also happy if they never put out a larger collection of that. But I'm going to keep that in B just for completionism's sake as we get to the rest of the Shazam books. Now, one thing that's going to end up in my A tier are the Josie Campbell and Mark Waid, Dan Mora of it all. I'm going to put that comfortably in A tier. Some of my favorite Shazam stuff that has come out in the last couple of years. Golden Age, a.k.a. public property or public domain. You got that in C tier. D tier is going to be the Magic of Shazam, Billy Batson, the Magic of Shazam books, an all ages title. Keep that for the kids. Don't put that in omnibus format. Power of Shazam. And if you watch my video, you will exactly know where I decided to place that. So that's going to go in S+ tier. Shazam, the World's Mightiest Mortal, the Bronze Age omnibus. C tier. Next on the list, we got a couple of showcase books, or one showcase book. Again, give me that in character form. Putting that in D tier. Sideways, New Challengers, Immortal Men, Brimstone. Awkwardly placed hodgepodge collection. Give me that in D tier. Silencer. Just remember seeing those John Romita Jr. covers. Remember reading it. Not my thing. D tier. Smallville, the TV tie-ins. I praised Brian Q. Miller earlier. Did not care for these comics. I'm going to put that in D tier. Born on a Monday, but dead on a Tuesday. This is going to go in D tier for Solomon Grundy. Sovereign 7. I'll rather read X-Men. I'm going to put that in D tier. Spectre by Doug Mensch, which is prior to Omnibus Volume 1. B tier. Spectre by Hal Jordan. This is going to be fun. This is going to be an S tier for me. That is a must. And I'm surprised again that we have not had many of those series collected in at all. We got the Golden Age Omni. I'd rather have this in DC Finest, but there is value in preservation, so I'm going to put that in C tier. Spirit by Cook Evanier and Plug. This is also going to go in C tier, but I also acknowledge that, we recently just had the Connoisseur edition of this come out from the people over at Act 4. I'd rather check that out. Next is Stanley and His Monster. I talked a little bit earlier about its previous book. It's also going to go in C tier for preservation purposes. One not in preservation purposes, and one I am actually quite interested in, maybe a little bit less so than others, is the Star Spangled Comics, which is going to go in the B tier. I want to see my shining Starman in that omnibus format. This is the Alien Fighter and not Coriander, as many of you may know. Corey popped up first in the DC Comics Presents 26 issue that also introduced us to Vic Stone and Raven. She is not a part of that list, and as for that reason, this is going to go in the... I had this in the B tier, but it would include the Time Master's Vanishing Point. I put this in B tier, I think, for that, but you know what? I think overall, thinking about it more so wise, I think my wanting of this is much less than others. If I'm going to be objectively fair about like Sword and Sorcery and other like Alien Fighter books that I've mentioned being in C tier, I think it's also fair to place that in C tier as well. I am going to put Stars and Stripe in the A tier for completionist sake, and also because it is technically the follow-up to... No, it is the follow-up to James Robinson's Starman. There's a plot point that happens in there. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that happens. And speaking of Starman, the only thing that withheld this from being my number one on my list was the fact that we had 2 compendiums. Otherwise, this book deserves every single piece of praise that it gets. So S plus for James Robinson Starman. Roger Stern Starman, Will Payton. I'm gonna put this in B tier. I think that's appropriate. I liked it, but not as much to say, oh, like this is outstanding. This is fantastic. You also got the Golden Age Omni. You got Adventures Comics. This is gonna end up in B tier as well. Again, mostly for preservation rather than anything. Oh, we got Steel by Louis Simonson and Christopher Priest. This has been one that I also have been asking for many years. This is going to go into S tier. Again, I think you talk about underrated runs. I think that definitely has to be, as far as a big list is concerned, it's got to end up very close there at the front. Now, this is very different. And I know that I talked about not being interested in tie-ins for comic books to TV shows. There are exceptions to the rule. And I feel like Steven Universe is one of the biggest exceptions to the rule. So I'm going to keep that in B. I really, really enjoyed the TV show as a kid. It was one of the 6 TV shows on Cartoon Network that I watched religiously in that time. I watched everything. Like, some people I know, it's like I got bullied at school by some of my friends for watching that, but I really did enjoy that show just as much as I did with regular show, Adventure Time, Amazing World of Gumball, Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Magical Time. If you were a Cartoon Network kid then, that was something that I wanted to watch every single time. Also taught me how to be a better person. Stormwatch. This is a deep cut. I'm going to put this in C. The only reason that I'm going to put this in C is because of Midnighter and Apollo. I literally do not care for anything else about that book besides that. Strange Adventures in the Golden Age featuring Captain Comet. Also going to go into C tier. Next on the list is the Silver Age Omnibus. Also going to go in C tier. Sugar, Spice, and Everything Nice. Shout out to Bill Quist-Evely and Keith Giffen for making me care about this book. This is going to go in B tier. Next on the list is Giffen, Ostrander, Willingham on Suicide Squad. C tier for me. And a very... oh, man. This is going to be interesting. This is the Tom Taylor Suicide Squad. I like half of the way that this book is mapped. I'd rather have a deluxe of it. I'm going to put this in C tier. One book that is not ending up any higher on my list. New Suicide Squad is going to end up in D tier. This is the second half of New 52. We also got Rob Williams' Suicide Squad. Do not care for it. Going to end up in D tier as well. Super Friends, the original years. If you want to see Aquaman talking to fish, this is going to end up in C tier because I like the DC Finest formatting overall, and I don't really need the omnibus. Boy of Steel by Superboy Boy of Steel by Jeff Johns, Jeff Lemire. Put that in the A tier. Actually, I had that switch, so there we go. That's an A tier, and this is the 90s Superboy run, which is also going to end up in A tier. I actually had these mixed up, so I'm going to put A tier for the Jeff Johns run, and then B tier for Francis Manapul, Jeff Johns, and Jeff Lemire on the return of Connor Kent after something happens to him in Infinite Crisis. The next tier, or the next list of Superboy comics, these are all going to go into C tier. So we have the Bronze Age, Golden Age, New 52, and the Silver Age. And New 52 was close to being in D tier for me, but just like a couple of the other New 52 omnibuses that I mentioned, because we already have DC now having a precedent for printing out New 52 books and omnibuses, I could totally see this at some point getting a New 52 omnibus. Adventures of Superboy for the TV, though, this is going to end up in D tier. And Bates and Kupperberg on the New Adventures of Superboy. This is going to go in the C tier. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the Supergirl books. The first of which is Peter David's Supergirl, S plus tier. And this has been, again, something that I've wanted for such a long time. You get Leonard Kirk and Gary Franken oversized too for one of the best Supergirl runs, if not greatest runs ever in history. Next on the list is the Bronze Age era of Supergirl. This is going to end up in C tier. Rather have this in finest format than DC Omnibus. Rebirth Omnibus was going to end up in B tier, but then I saw that they were going to include Andreyka, at least for the mapping of this, because they included Andreyka for the mapping of Supergirl. I'm going to keep that in B tier because I really, really do like that run. Next on the list is the Jeff Loeb Supergirl era title. We have this in, which would start off with Public Enemies. It's going to end up in C. What will end up in B tier is the Supergirl run by Sterling Gates. I would like to see that in Codified sometime. And next on the list, we do have some Superman books. By Superman books, we have a lot of Superman books. First off, which is a romance book, or team-up book between him and Wonder Woman. I really wish that this book wasn't romantic. It'd be a lot higher, but there's a lot of good art in it as well. You got Charles Soule and Tony S. Daniel in for most of the titles, so yeah, I'll take what you can get. This one, only because the compendium exists. I'm going to put this in D tier. This is the Superman, the the Adventures Omni. And again, it's selfish because I already have Compendium 1, and I really want to get to the second Compendium at some point. The Bendis Companions. This would have Lois, Jimmy, the Event Leviathan, and Checkmate stories. I'm going to put this in C tier. Just, again, I'd rather have that all separate. I'd rather have the Lois Lane series by Greg Rucka separate. I'd rather have the Jimmy Olsen by Lieber and Fraction separate. And again, that's just a me thing in terms of the fit and the mapping. Superman Family, the Bronze Age. I'm going to put this in C tier. Again, DC Finest, just preference over the rest of these, as well as Superman Team Up also ending up in the C tier. Ending up in the C tier 2 is the Elseworlds Finest Omnibus Volume 2. Again, same reason to the Batman Omnibus. I actually don't even... Man, there's just too many of these books. I actually think I had Batman. too many Elseworlds. Next on the list is the Return from Warworld by Philip Kennedy Johnson Omnibus. And this isn't higher because of the mapping. I'd rather have Omnibus 2 of Philip Kennedy Johnson over, oh, hey, we're going to collect the next 10 issues and then move on to Jason Aaron and then Gail Simone and then John Ridley and then later Mark Waid. So that's how I exactly feel about this book. Now, if this were Philip Kennedy Johnson Omnibus Volume 2, this would probably end up in S or S plus tier, but that isn't that, so I'm just going to keep it that way. World Without Superman by Rucka and Cornell. I think that this should be an immediate existing book. I was very close to putting it in the S plus tier, but the only reason why is because there were other books that I figured out that I wanted more. If you want good Lorzod and New Krypton content, this is definitely the way to get it. You got Nightwing and Flamebird added into this. I think that this is a great cut, and for anybody who hasn't read it, if you're a big Greg Rucka fan, I definitely suggest reading it. Maybe not to the extent of Checkmate, but definitely on the top of my list as far as these all go. Next book that we're going to be talking about is the Action Comics Greg Pak New 52 Omni. This is going to end up in C tier. Nothing against Greg Pak, but there's just a lot of these Action Comics or Superman-related runs, U52, that I just feel very iffy about. Post-Triangle era Joe Kelly also going to end up in the C tier as well. Rather see it in finest format. I think that they're going along. I think the 5% hit this down from a B to a C just because, well, we've seen them do City tomorrow in Compendium, so I'm going to keep that there and throughout. Superman, John Kent, Son of Kal by Tom Taylor. Not for me. I think this era was a particular miss from DC, and it has nothing to do with... I just don't know if the John Kent that we've gotten in the last couple of years, it just doesn't speak highly to me. There is a part of me that misses John Kent. There is a part of me that also... the old... or the young, but public... or publish old, I think is how you word it. I kind of miss that John, but I also am happy that we've moved on. But I'm still conflicted about it, and that's why it's going to be in the D tier. Post-Triangle era Adventures. Casey and Rucka. Again, underrated stuff. I'm going to put this in A tier. Next on the list, we got the Triangle era, Post-Triangle era, anyways, a line-wide collection. I don't know, man. I think there's a tipping point that you have with some characters. I'm going to put that in C tier. Also going to be in C tier is Superman by Brian Michael Bendis. And I know that some people hate it. I think I'm in the middle on this run. There's a lot of things that I do like about it, especially the first year or so of Action Comics. I found that stuff really strong. But there's some stuff that I also don't know if I fully agree with the way that book works. Next on the list is Johns and Busiek on Superman. Yeah, one of my favorite eras of Superman that's going to go immediately in S plus tier. Next on the list is the Superman Confidential series. Actually, hold on a minute. I think I got some. So this is the Action Comics Superman by James Robinson. I'm so sorry, guys. That should be in B tier. And this should be in the S plus tier. That is the Superman. That's a Pete Woods cover, if I'm not mistaken, from 864. And then we have Superman Confidential. Again, I'd rather have Kryptonite in a deluxe format than have Kryptonite in an omnibus. So that is just my opinion on the way that they are putting those out, or that this is mapped in for this particular list. New 52 Superman. Just too many conflicting ideas. That's going to go in the D tier for me. Next is the 1980s Omnibus. This is going to go quite high, actually. This is going to go in the B tier for me for preservation, and we just haven't had enough of that Superman content yet. One that's also going to end up not as high as I thought it would, but definitely higher. This is the 70s era Superman. You got Kryptonite, Nevermore, and a couple of other strong stories in here. While I do have it in finest format, I also do acknowledge how strong it will be onto the restoration plan. And if they can get some of those issues restored, we might see it in finest format as well. We have the Golden Age Omni, Volume 8. We're gonna go in C tier, and this is gonna, I think, very weirdly push folks out. I'm going to put Man of Steel in the C tier. This actually ended up being a 1 for me on the scale because it's coming out in finest. I don't need the Omni. Those Omni, I can't imagine how much restoration work they're going to have to do on those omnibuses if we ever get to that point. And I hope they do get to that point as well, but considering that it's going to be in finest, I think I'm going to be okay with that. Silver Age, also C. Next on the list is City of Tomorrow, like I mentioned earlier. We got it in Compendium, and the only reason I didn't put it down below, there's some part of me that still wants to see, so that's going to end up in C. Now, one era that I would love to see fully fit, President Lex era. One of my favorite Jeff Loeb era. Like, I'm not a big Jeff Loeb fan, but that is one of my favorite eras of Superman, at least in that particular instance. Triangle era, Volume 4. This is going to be in the B tier for me. Next on the list, we have the Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, Bronze Age. This is going to also be in the B tier for me. Shout out to Casualty Comics for making me invested in this material. And also Silver Age, this is going to end up higher in A, although I am more than fine with the finest format for this one. Again, it comes down to not only the preservation of it all, but I think the restoration, if they ever do decide to do those omnibuses, would also help out the finest line strongly as well, so they don't have to do more of the work for a cut of the price. We also got Jimmy Olsen, which is also going to end up coincidentally in B and A. I wanted to be fair to the Superman characters, and that's how I see it fit. Next on the list is the Superwoman Rebirth Omnibus. I think one of the most underrated rebirth titles by Phil Jimenez. It also had Art 2, a whole bunch of different creators. It's going to end up in the A tier for me. And yeah, you probably also know where this Omni is. It's Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. That's going to end up in S+. I don't think I need to say anything else besides that. Brian K. Vaughan, just to fill up some gaps and holes, also going to end up in A tier, and also heard nothing but good things about the title. Now, one thing I haven't heard maybe as good things about, Swamp Thing by Diggle. We're going to put that in B tier, so a little bit of a less of a want for me on that front. We got Rick Veitch on this Omni. I would love to see Jesus meet Swamp Thing fully restored if they ever get to that point. So that's going to go in A. We got low priority for the Tales of the Dark Multiverse. I have this all in singles. Some of these were good. Some of these were absolutely god-awful, so I'm going to put that in D. Tales of the Unexpected. This got Jack Kirby art, so I'm only mildly interested. We also got Talon by James Tynion, a book that I read when I was a kid. Also, just for nostalgic purposes and for putting it in the... Oh, yeah, I actually read this bin. Next on the list, we got Tangent Comics and Tangent Superman's Reign, 2 distinct comics lines. 2 separate series, not really interested. The same goes for Tarzan, not really interested in reading the DC years either. Teen Titans Go, there's some merit because of nostalgia, but I also do not particularly care. And this is the same reason that I have for Justice League Unlimited. Also got Terrific's New Age of Superheroes by Gene Luen Yang and Jeff Lemire. I already have the complete collection of this. I don't necessarily know if I need this in omnibus format. I love the series, but it's also something I have. I don't need to buy again. The Movement and the Green Team, New 52 Omnibus, so you have 2 separate series all here as well. You want to see Destro with the money. I don't want to see that, so I'm going to put that in D tier. The Shadow, cult classic for a character. That's going to end up in B. Same with Tiny Titans. I would actually like to see that in a nice format, but I wouldn't mind if they actually put Tiny Titans by Art Baltazar in a compendium. Whew, we got a lot of Titans to talk about. You got the Legacy Titans and the New Titans. And the New Titans, what I mean by New Titans, is a completely brand new roster, all done by Dan Jurgens. This is going to go into S+ tier for me. This is one that I've been asking for years, and I'm so surprised that they have not gotten to this area yet. I know there's probably going to be a lot of restoration work on that, and I wish the series had moved on. If they had actually added Tim Drake onto that team versus the newly minted Young Justice characters onto the Johns run, but alas, you get what you get. We also got the follow-up to that Johns run with the McKeever and Cruel Years. It's going to go in C tier for me. There are a lot of stories in there that are absolutely atrocious, but I am putting that in there because of the completionism of it, and I also want to see Aquagirl in that particular, particular stories as well when she joins the team. Same with all of these characters who were pushed through the mold after 1 year later. I'm just going to acknowledge that this book was on the poll and move on. You probably know it's New 52 Teen Titans, and I'm not going to go further than that. Now, Teen Titans Rebirth, I'm going to put that in the C tier. This is interesting because I don't really care for the Percy run, but the Adam Glass portions of it all, it reminded me a lot of the Dan Jurgens run on Teen Titans, where you're bringing in new characters into the fold with some old ones mixed in there just to see, how would Damian operate a team? Unfortunately, it led to one of the biggest character assassinations that I can recall in decent memory with the Robbie Thompson run, but it's a run that exists, and I think it would be nice to see fit again for completionism's sake. We also got Teen Titans Spotlight. This is also going to be ending up in the C for me. That this is weird, but I will prefer to read that in a nicely mapped Titans DC Finest. We've also got Omnibus Volume 2 of Marv Wolfman's New Titans. I want to see Titans Hunt in that larger form as well. We've also got this is the Legacy run that I was talking about earlier, coming out from the pages of the Technis Imperative. This is the Devin Grayson run of Titans, and I think it should get more talk than it deserves. So I'm going to put that at S+ tier. Easy. These are two of my, I need this on my shelf ASAP. We've also got Judd Winnick. This is going to end up in the B tier for me. I'll keep it that way. There's some fun to be had, but it's not my favorite. But it also fills in a nice gap. The only thing is because I'm a weirdo. Just remember Corey and Dick. I'll just say losing themselves to each other, and somebody on the other phone line saying, "Hey, are you guys there? Hello." S tier for Dan Abnett's Titans. One of my favorite Titans runs, and also one of my favorite Rebirth runs in general. Titans Academy. I picked this up in singles. I do not want to read it or wish any further on this book. Tom Strong by Alan Moore. I really want this. We'll put this in B tier. Had the compendiums not existed, that would be a lot higher. The same also goes for the Tom Strong Companion. And I feel like I don't need to say anything else besides that. Tomahawk. I really enjoyed this character in the DC Finest Western. Preservation. And for a lot of these, rotten pages. I don't know what the actual word is for that term, but alas, it is what it is. Just because the Absolute is out of print, I'm going to put top 10 in my S tier. Again, nothing against the compendium. I just want to see it all unfold out well. I also got Trinity. Trinity, Pandora's Box, baby. A whole bunch of random runs all smushed together. The tonal differences on that book make me want to put it in D tier, but completionism is a strong thing. We also got Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters. I want to give a big shout out to Robert Venditti for getting me into that series. I'm going to put that in B tier. I actually had a lot of fun with Uncle Sam and some of the characters in that book as well. We got Unknown Soldier. I'm going to put this in C tier, while the Vertigo series, or the original series anyways, I'm going to put that in the B tier. And I feel the same way again about all of these war books. The Visitors Are Our Friends by Bates and Kupperberg, tying to the TV series. Don't care. I'm going to put that in D tier. Next on the list, we got Vertigo Visions by Jamie Delano. I'm going to put all of these Vertigo series in the C tier. And it's nothing against the Vertigo series. It's just that my point of view, at least with all of these, are that they'll come out when they get a chance to come out. I'm not too particularly... I know that we've had the revitalization of the Vertigo line. I am very interested to see how they decide to divvy all of that up, whether it is under their brand. And considering that these are all creator-owned or shifting to creator-owned royalties over the rest, I think I would feel very particularly comfortable. I don't know, like it just feels weird to be in an era where they are actually focusing this for the creators in line, and I'll get them if I ever get a chance to read them at some point. But again, all of these, with the exception of one, and I'll get to that when I get to it, all of these I'm comfortable with putting in the C tier for my most wants, with the exception of Sweet Tooth. I really want a Sweet Tooth omnibus or like some sort of oversized hardcover to get all of that in. But everything else, I'm more than happy. Like I said, once again, with this all in the C tier, and a lot of fantastic creators on the, like, you know, DMZ, my buddy Justin really loves the book. FPB, they're putting that out in complete collections now. Transmet has been placed into absolutes with reprints on those absolutes. Just not enough for me to go. There's one thing here that I really, really want to engage in besides Sweet Tooth. And Vigilante, I'm going to put that in C as well. I thought about putting it higher, but it's also something that I'm not too particularly He's a more interesting character than Peacemaker. I said it, guys. War the Time Forgot. I'm going to put that in B tier for preservation. Got Warlord Omnibus Volume 3. Going to put that in B tier because I know it's going to happen and I also want it. Wasteland. Going to put that in the B tier. This is about Ostrander and Close. I've heard nothing but good things about the series. A very interesting collection as a voice crack there by Jeff Johns and Alan Moore, Gary Frank, Dave Gibbons, Watchmen, and Doomsday Clock. We put that together. And also the lead up with Mr. Oz and the Batman Flash the Button series. There are a lot of lead ups that nobody else talks about. I would like to see that. I just want to see it for the hell of it. I think that's mainly it. Wayne Family Comics. It's a free webtoon, but I understand the reselling value of it. Weird and Cosmic by Jim Starlin. I'll put that in C tier. And also Weird War Tales, the Bronze Age Omnibus, in C tier. We've got the Wildcats, which are not going to end up too high because I have this in singles. I'm going to put that in D tier. The only one, there are only 2 or 3 books here as far as Peter's fun love with the Wildstorm, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not too big of a Wildstorm guy. They're all going to end up in D tier, with the exception of Midnighter and Apollo. I love those 2 characters, love their relationship. That's going to end up in the larger tier. For the B, that's going to end up in B, but every single one of these series, just because I'm not a Wildstorm guy, I also admittedly will say that Peter has done a fantastic and stupendous job on mapping. Other than that, I have no interest in these. Gen 13, if only for the fact that they appeared in New 52 Teen Titans, or Caitlin Fairchild appeared in a Teen Titans spin-off called Ravagers. That's the only reason to why I am even remotely interested in that title. Otherwise, I'm looking at this and I'm telling myself, I literally do not need any of these at all. Stormwatch would probably be different, but again, I am just at the point where I'm telling myself, I don't know if I need to have all of this. Wildstorm, I have thought of placing this higher, but I already have it in single issues, so do not need the omnibus or have no want on that front. This also includes Jim Lee's Wildcats. I just don't feel strongly about any of this, unfortunately, including Grifter. And we've also got the Witching Hour Volume 1 also ending up on D because I retro prefer the DC finest of it all. Wonder Woman 77. Give me this in the B tier. I really enjoyed the Batman 66 compendium, and I actually would like to see that all put out in Omni someday. Wonder Woman by J. Michael Straczynski. This is the Odyssey. I'll put that in C tier. It's not my favorite Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman by Eric Luke. The only reason that I read this, I'll be shameful to admit it, those Adam Hughes covers, man, they slap, and this series also does too. So I'm going to put that in B tier. One that ended up way higher than I thought, just for the history of it all, and everybody else also seems to want it. And I also read it, even though it's not my favorite. I just wanted an oversized. Let's put Diodato and Messenger Loeb's Wonder Woman in that S tier of it all. So I'm going to put that in S tier. Next on the list is the Infinity Frontier Omnibus from the Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad. Not that I didn't mind the book. I already have it in singles. The singles are in the same... They're in a similar bag to the Tom King Batman singles that I have. So no wishes on that front so far. Meredith Finch and David Finch. Oh, man. Not my favorite. So it's going to end up in D tier. The Rebirth Omnibuses. These are for completionism purposes mainly. I also like those material more than these two, those two, so I'm going to put that in C tier. We've also got Amazon's Attack. Why do we need this, guys? Next up on the list is the Bronze Age I quite enjoyed what I've read in the DC Finest, The Legend of Wonder Woman, but it's also something that it's not too high on my list, but I like it more than so I'm going to put that in B tier. Next on this list is the World's Finest New 52 Omnibus, which would include, well, actually, no, there is one more. Yeah, this is the Golden Age, the final Golden Age Omni. It's going to happen at some point, but this in C tier. Next on the list is the actual World's Finest Huntress and Power Girl. I had some fun with this book. I am going to put this in B tier. I had a lot of fun. And the same goes for, actually, this is not the same goes. Yeah, this is actually going to be interesting. I want this split up. I don't want this all in one. This is the Young Animal DC Omnibus. We're going to put Cave Carson and Milk Wars and Mother Panic, of course, Doom Patrol. I already got the Doom Patrol hardcover. I'm more than fine with keeping it that way. Whew. Next on the list is Young Love, the Supergirl Omnibus. Or this is not Supergirl. Gosh, I can't say anything anymore, guys. This is the Young Heroes in Love. Not really interested. I'm going to put that in D tier. I'm also going to put Young Justice in that same tier as well. I'd rather watch a TV show. Now, Young Justice by Bendis. I'll put that in B tier. Preserve that for Bendis. And then we have the last two on the list. Young Love. I'm going to put that in D tier just because I'm not too interested. And then The Tan of the Early Years in C tier. And that is it for every single DC Omnibus on the poll. And if I may, I'll put a... Oh man, this is way too big of a list, guys.
If you haven't yet, check out our website, comicreleases.com, my and Webhead's love letter to comics, a hotspot where you can finally figure out what's coming out, when, from what place. Our unique upcoming website tracker in the Collected Editions tab makes sure that you're on top of every single collected edition coming out on the market with release date updates to the minute, from the tiniest graphic novels to the giant Generator Deluxe hardcovers as large as an absolute. Our unique spreadsheet not only gives out the most accurate information out there, but our format also filters ensure that you can find your books as quickly as possible. The tracker also gives out links to domestic and international retailers so that you can purchase your comic books at the snap of a finger. We are also proud to host monthly solicitations as per given by the publishers that generously send us information to give to you all. From the Ultimate Universe to the creator-loved Oceans and Universes, we specialize in giving you the most readable format of solicitations without any of the annoying advertisements. If you also donate to our Patreon at just $2 a month, which is less than a coffee at Starbucks, you will receive access to a special watch list dedicated to individually tracking items that are on your wish list, past or present. Place in your tracking number and make sure that these books also not only come in safe, you can even put in special comments on these as well. On top of that, your name will also show up at the end of every single Dom of X video creates as a huge thank you. That is comicreleases.com. For more information, check this out down in the description. If you also want to contact me or Webhead, check the contact forms down in the description or email me down in the description.
I have no idea if any of you are watching at this point, but somewhere on the screen will be an actual photo of the tier list. Oh my gosh, man. I have no idea how I was able to put that in front. But if you did enjoy this video and you want to see me torture myself more, let me know down in the comments section below. That's going to be it for me. I'm Dom of X. Please stay safe, guys, and have a wonderful day wherever you are.